let's get started. Topic 1. Derek Chauvin was convicted on all counts. The movement inspired by George Floyd's death was largely responsible for any of the gains that BLM has achieved. And now that the verdict has finally come down, do you expect that many of the movement's allies will say, mission accomplished, and go home? Would Chauvin being acquitted have been a bigger boon for the movement, or would that have been disastrous for morale and simply made people more apathetic than energized? Okay, so just talking about how Chauvin, being found guilty and how that will affect the movement going forward, right? We'll do a minute-long introductions and keep it to a fucking minute, KTN. No, yeah, I'm calling you out. And then we'll jump into the whole panel. All right, be more.
Well, mission accomplished, my ass, right? Like what we won there was just a skirmish, not even the battle. And the war seems like it's freaking perpetual. We have people out there that are mad that a murderer was convicted of murder for murdering a black man. Like, think about that. Like, that's wild. For anybody to say mission accomplished, you gotta be stupid. We got a long way to go. And we'll get into that more later.
Lyra?
All right, so whenever we get like I guess a win, I hate to like phrase it that way, but whenever particularly like black justice movements get a win, there's always going to be like a shroud of people who go, mission accomplished and head out. And I think that stems from this bare minimum mentality that a lot of allies have, where they're just like, oh, well, I won't exactly call my governor, but I'll post that black square on my Instagram just to show a little bit of solidarity. So I'm definitely expecting allyship to go down, but like allyship goes up and down anyway when these things happen. And like, I mean, for example, the same thing happened after Obama became president. So many people were like, racism solved, he has a black president now. And as we can see, not quite. But as for the rest of the question, I think it's to say that like, oh, maybe the Black Lives Movement would have like had a boon if he was acquittal. That's losing sight of the whole purpose of Black Lives Matter, because I mean, Derek Chauvin if he was acquitted, that would have been great for ratings. It would have been great for like attention, but that's not what BLM is supposed to be about. We're fighting for justice and accountability. So I mean, ratings may go down, but like, who cares as long as we're getting the justice that we're fighting for?
Thanks so much. Okay. Let's go with Marks.
Yeah, it probably will go down, but like everybody says, as expected, even with the civil rights movement, to get like a mass amount of people protesting for like a significant period of time, it takes like these big high profile cases to like get everybody energized and like see the drama of it all and like actually for once experience it. I don't know how to say this without saying it blunt. This is usually like a white people thing. And this is not because like it's intrinsic, but usually because white people don't like experience systemic racism. They don't feel a lot of the pressures black people do in this country. And they will, some uneducated allies will see this and say, mission accomplished, racism defeated or whatnot. But we all know that's not the case. But it's as expected. I hope that as the years go on, that more and more people will actually see the systemic problems in this country and work more and more to fix it.
Thanks so much. Next, Baha.
Yeah, so as like people pointed out, there's always going to be people that drop off of any movement that starts and has something, any kind of like sizable victory happen. And for a lot of people, this will be like a big target to say we solved racism. However, I just hate like so much pessimism on the side of leftists that I see a lot, where it's like we can't even appreciate small victories that come from like movements like this. Like I'm just appreciative of the fact that maybe the Floyd family will have like a little bit of relief from this, get some kind of like catharsis from this. And I just think people harp way too much on the fact that like there's going to be the obvious drop off of people that really never give a fuck about BLM in the first place, right? So I think it's important that we like look to organizers and we look to people that like are trying to like get the movement going like on the ground like in various places. It's important to keep those people like put on a pedestal kind of because it's always going to take like organizers and people that are active in their communities to be able to keep momentum for any movement period. It doesn't matter. Like people need to kind of be led in a way, and this is one of those times where we should focus on the good because it's nice to have some dopamine to our brains about smoking on the Chauvin pack tonight or like for the rest of the week or whatever. But we also just it's it's fine to be aware that people drop off. I don't want to hang too much on the pessimism.
Right.
That's all.
Fanatic.
Yeah, I think there will be like a slight drop off. I don't know. I wish it'd be a little bit larger. I really despised the BLM organization. And I really want people to get the hell away from them at all costs. So some people will look at this as a victory and see it as like, yeah, we accomplished something. But I really hope that people can recognize that the organization is not the same thing as the movement, and that we're still pushing for justice while trying our best to completely abolish or just invalidate that dang organization. That organization is cancer, and they can suck my left nut.
Kyle, what nuts are available for people to suck?
Well, BLMs, I don't know. I can't talk about that's on my forte. I can't talk about that. But on the topic, yeah, like everybody has been saying, I can also echo the idea of a drop off of people participating in the movement. Just yesterday, I was out in downtown doing a demonstration with the Answer Coalition, talking about the case. You know, as we were kind of celebrating the fact that the people pushed for a guilty verdict, we also talked about the current deaths of Adam Toledo, Ma'Khia Bryant, everybody who's like, you know, the fight still goes on. People still die every day. This struggle continues. And, you know, while there wasn't a very massive turnout, and like, I guess in terms of the other question, the turnout would be a lot bigger if it was an innocent verdict. But, you know, the whole point is that we wanted to get the justice in the first place. And, you know, the struggle continues, and that's what matters.
JTN.
Hey, I think that the people that are going to bounce weren't going to stay long anyway. So, you know, that's kind of the way I look at it. So that was great that Chauvin got convicted. And this thing was supposed to be a long marathon anyway. So, you know, just keep it going. There's no other way. You know what I mean? I don't think people leaving should be discouraging, and I don't think there would have been any good in Chauvin getting acquitted. You know, yeah, that might have given us more of a fight, but at what cost? You know,
Joe?
Yeah, these things come in waves. Especially like, I don't know how to word this thought, but basically, you see throughout history sort of like upticks of like catalyst social events, and then back down into like another sort of murmuring uptick, murmur, uptick, murmur, and we're at the uptick. Now it would be great to see some type of uptick in sustainability, but historically, I just haven't seen any evidence to suggest that there's going to be a very like high level of like sustainability, like 70 to 80% active community involvement, which is good or bad depending on what community you live in. For my township, they don't give a shit. It's unfortunate they don't give a shit. But my people in my capital do, and this part of my district. So that's kind of where my thought, my priorities are at. The verdict is great, like 3 for 3, ladies and gentlemen, we got him. But it's just there's way more shit. This is just tip of the iceberg, you know.
Okay. Yeah, open to the panel.
Yeah, that's why I say this is a skirmish, is the fact that we have appeals to deal with. There's other people in this case that are like pretty much didn't stop Chauvin from committing the murder. We got a long way to go. It's like, especially if you watch the case, you'll see there's room for the defense to get another case. So I just think it's good practice or diversity of methods of practice. Like, somebody has to stay outraged. Somebody has to make sure people know that this shit's not over. It's not.
Sure. And it's not just that. I think probably the most important function is sentencing. Again, you can convict somebody for anything, but remember, Brock Turner got 6 months for raping a girl behind a dumpster with 2 freaking eyewitnesses. Rape, 6 months, because the judge felt like he didn't want to ruin his life. I can easily see a judge deciding, I really don't want to send too much of a message here, or I don't want to aid towards whatever. I think this case is too prejudicial. I don't know whatever freaking excuse he's going to make to let this white man get, I don't know, 3 years or 5 years for murdering somebody. We're going to let him serve all 3 charges like concurrently and whatever, and give him the lightest charge possible. Yes, he's going to have appeals. Like they're going to do that. Amber Geiger is trying to get appeals. She ain't winning that case. She murdered that man literally in his apartment and then didn't provide aid, just like Derek Chauvin didn't. So yeah, there's a lot of problems here. I mean, there's still a long way to go. It's not over. And then Black Lives Matter as an organization is still functioning. We got to find a way of dismantling.
Yeah, I'm with you, Fanatic. I mean, soon John Doe got 5 years probation and 400 hours of community service for shooting a 15-year-old girl in the back of the head. So it's like you can get to the point of sentencing where, like, once you get the person for the charge, right? In the case that I'm alluding to was the catalyst of the LA riots. But then when it came to the appeal process, of like this sentencing is bullshit. Like this sentence is bullshit. We appealed, and then and the judge was asked to resign as well. Judge kept her job. Appeal was denied, and then that same week, not guilty verdicts on Rodney King, and then LA burned. So it's like, while yes, there's like again, like that's another idea of like a peak point, but like the sentencing is the next level of that because we're not done.
Yeah, and that's a good point. The fact that they spread it off for 2 months before they have the sentencing. So there's like a 2-month gap where people think it's like pretty chill, and then depending on how it goes.
Yeah, it's like just like as everyone here is like kind of echoing, it's like we still have so much to go. And like to like any allies like looking at there, like even this case in and of itself, like with the verdict and the conviction coming out, it should already say a lot that there were already like protests being lined up just in case. Like so many people were so worried and anxious about the conviction of a cop murdering someone in daylight. And like we shouldn't have to like feel anxious about that at all. So that in and of itself says a lot. And like as Joe and Fanatic said, we still need to worry about sentencing. So and this is just for the Chauvin case. What about everyone else? We just had another police killing this week and another one last week. So there's still plenty of work to be done. And like on this subject, the most that we always have to like expect a dip in support. Because when these high profile cases happen, there's always like a spike, right? So of course it's gonna dip, but the most that we can like hope for is that after that dip, there's still like a trend upwards. It's gonna spike sometimes with Derek Chauvin. We know it's gonna fall, but at the very least, let's get a little bit more support than we had a year ago, and then 2 years ago, and then 5, and so on and so on. And another thing I want to say is definitely fuck Black Lives Matter, the organization. Whenever I say Black Lives Matter, I mean the movement. Not the organization. I don't know what the hell they're doing. I don't care. So whenever you hear like people say, hey, support Black Lives Matter, they're usually talking about support charities, like donate to your local charities that help like Black people, donate to bail funds to help all the protesters. Don't give your money to BLM organization because they're doing God knows what with it. But support the charities, support charities that help Black people. That's what we mean by support the Black Lives Matter movement.
Yeah, and if there's anybody out there who's prominent within the BLM like organization, like you're gonna have to send me your receipts at this point. Like the fact that y'all used Act Blue to funnel the funds to I don't fucking know where. I want to know where. And if you want to clear your name, that's exactly what you need to do. I want to know what the hell you're doing.
It sounds like Destiny debated the wrong people. Then is that what you're suggesting?
Do you guys feel that way about the whole BLM? Because like there's all different chapters. Like
there is
like PSL, for example, worked with the BLM Pasadena chapter to have a teach-in in Inglewood just this past weekend. And I mean, like, I don't know if that's like a place that you would bring up something like that. Like, I don't know if they would bring up like the national organization and like a local thing like that. I don't know if that's.
I'm sure they're not all bad, but I think more support and more help can be done when you donate to local charities rather than this huge organization that's very spread out.
Isn't that kind of
I see where you're coming from. That's what I was trying to get where you're coming from. Yeah,
isn't that kind of a flaw of BLM that they purposely decentralized it and. You don't know what one organization is doing in one district or one state or one community, and then you don't know what. And then you've got the heads, who are the ones that are financed by corporations and things like that. And there's no vetting to the process.
Absolutely,
but, I get like just the idea that it's like this it's this blah, and then it's a catch-all for every conservative like piece of ire.
Right.
Because you can just say, well, these people did this in this state. Like Portland's a place where like right now there's a bunch of beef between BLM and a lot of the other organizations. And a lot of like local organizations have kind of just cut ties and been like, you know what, you're not doing the job. And then also on top of it, they've also picked up representatives who, you know, have very strange and shady pasts. So,
Sure.
you know, I think that's kind of what you get when you want to do this decentralized, unvetted situation where you just let chapters pop up. I mean, and maybe you do want to decentralize, but I think that they have whatever they're doing, they need a new game plan.
Well, I think to reinforce your point a little bit and give a bit more context, this was kind of the problem with decentralization. Like this understanding that every community has different types of needs and priorities in terms of what their community wants. But then what happens is, unfortunately, is that God damn it. I'm listening to Rob Nord too much. Okay, listen, the mainstream media is way too toxic well, you know what I'm saying? Because what happens is the mainstream media sources, I'm talking like the Fox Newses, the CNBCs, the CNNs, they don't really understand what decentralization means. Probably because they're in an industry that's so centralized in the guise of decentralization. So what happens is you'll have something that happens, let's say pigs in a blanket fry 'em like bacon, right? That's the one thing like that Donald Trump was heralding, despite the fact that the organizers of that demonstration in the area where that clip came from denounced that clip and said, like, this is where the protest started, this is where it ended, this is where we marched, this is clearly not where we marched, and this isn't us. And despite the fact that got roped into the anti-cop rhetoric, like, were those people out there? Yes. Were they part of the movement that they were attached to? No. But because of decentralization and media's desire to try to like find a higher individual, they don't see the actual organizers as higher individuals within the centralized movements, which I think is a problem. But I don't think there's a way of solving that in the immediate year to 3.
So I agree with like centralization just because I think it's more effective. But an argument I've heard for decentralization is that when you're centralized, you usually have like figureheads of the movement, like civil rights movement, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, and people argue that since they're kind of like the energy of the movement, and this government like obviously doesn't like civil rights protesters, especially black ones, the government will eventually try to kill them, like what happened with Malcolm X and Martin Luther King, and that'll sort of like kill the energy of the movement. What do you guys
We also all got
think of that
murdered
argument?
by every 3-letter agency.
I mean,
So.
Yeah.
it happened anyway. I mean, you can kill the
Yeah.
revolutionary, but you can't kill the revolution, you know? So,
Yeah.
I mean, even worse if you're talking about the CIA infiltrating organizations like BLM. If it's decentralized, all they got to do is have a decentralized BLM organization pop up somewhere. They can find 5 or 6 people and say, okay, you're BLM, I don't know, Schenectady. You know, you're BLM, whatever. Now go out there and go do some, you know, nefarious BLM
Sketch
stuff.
shit.
So they can write about you. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's not
Exactly.
that hard to infiltrate a decentralized organization. Just as it might not be that hard to infiltrate a centralized organization, but at least there's more accountability with a centralized organization than there is with a decentralized.
And even to your point, KTN, like there's no one of the biggest things that I think we can take away from COINTELPRO and the investigation of communists in the United States is that organizations like the FBI and the CIA in particular never disclosed that they stopped doing the very practices that led to the deaths of so many, not only civil rights leaders, but civil rights activists, women's rights activists, gay rights activists. Like there was never any sort of rectification from the church committee, because even within the church committee, the very members of the committee were also plugs within the FBI. Because imagine this. Imagine that you are an informant for the FBI working to deal with dissent within an organization, and then you say this is bullshit, and then you testify to Congress, and then you look and it's like, oh, that's my contact up there on the church committee itself. And it's like, well, what the fuck am I supposed to do then? Like, when the very committees designed to investigate these things are also corrupt. And if you think I'm full of fucking shit and going full conspiratorial, the fucking informant said it. So
really quickly, I don't want Prime to hate me because I don't want the conversation to go too far in that direction, because right now we're just all bashing BLM. And it's a good organization to bash. I want you guys to understand. I'm so totally behind all of that. But regarding if there wasn't a conviction, because that was embedded in the question as well, would that have been would that have like been demoralizing and end the movement? I don't think so at all. I think what we saw with Rodney King was that lack of conviction really heavily contributed to those LA riots. Like when that happened, everything broke loose. The state turned blue. It's been blue literally ever since. It's been crazy mobilization of voters. There was just they created those consent decrees, which I think overall are kind of garbage, but whatever. That like ended up creating some of the movement behind dismantling the Rampart Division. So a lot of that stuff, I feel like if they would have said no, if they would have like let him go free, I think there was going to be large scale like protesting and riots. And I'm pretty sure all of us here stand against rioting, but the idea that there are that it doesn't have an effect in kind of encouraging people to be encouraging legislation and motivating legislation that's beneficial for civil rights, I think that would be completely false.
Well, my thing is there's always an abundance of things to rally under at this point. I mean, we're still not even done with Ahmaud Arbery. We're still not done with
Breonna Taylor.
Yes, we're still not done with that. We're still not done with Deontay. So I mean, the irony of the last few days of the trial, Deontay happens. You know what I mean? Like, so you just want this, like,
y'all didn't learn anything.
I watched news coverage of the verdict. Sorry. I watched news coverage of the verdict, and like what was so heartbreaking was this young lady that they interviewed before and after the verdict was released, when they said, "Oh, how do you feel? How do you feel?" He was guilty on all 3 charges, and she was like, "Oh, I feel so relieved. Finally, we could take this day to celebrate, and then tomorrow we're coming back out for Dante Wright." And that just that crushed me.
Pretty crazy.
That crushed me.
So even if he was acquitted, okay, then it was something else to rally on. But also he was convicted. Now there's still something else to rally on.
Oh yeah, there's something to rally on. But if he was acquitted, there would have been a different kind of rally.
Oh yeah,
ironically, 100%.
I think conservatives are actually using that argument to like say that there's pressure on the jurors because they knew that if Chauvin got away with it, that there would be like all kinds of hell in their city, and that like pressured them into giving a guilty verdict instead of the overwhelming evidence.
I mean, like I too sometimes dream that I have Jocelyn James and Kelly Devine in my bed, but I also then wake up from my dream and realize, oh, I'm in reality. So unfortunately, like what happens with a talking point like that, not to say that's not the point you're advocating for, but that's like the craziest part about it, where like there's people who would think like, well, the jury was tainted, and it's like you have no proof that the jury was tainted
at all.
They'll go through every single word gymnastic to try to rationalize the reality, and that's really unfortunate to me.
Argument for the jury being tainted. Okay, then people are making arguments they should have moved the trial to another venue. Okay, what venue in the state of Minnesota would have not been biased in the other direction?
Hold on, KTN. I agree. They should have held it in Atlanta. All right, like I'm pretty sure.
Literally every state in the country had a protest for George Floyd. Like you couldn't have gone away from like this influence. It's always a high profile case.
Most of these people don't know about juror protection precedent or how like high profile cases are handled and the way the jurors' identity are concealed. Like I'll see a lot of people still tote out this like juror argument that like people were scared for their lives, like somehow information leaked or whatever. And it's the quickest Google search in the world to find out this shit is bullshit. Like they just don't look into these things, and it's become like, it makes sense, I guess, in your reptile brain to like keep repeating that, like, oh, these people feared for their lives, instead of just recognize that they just saw evidence that convinced them. But,
nah, the jury was
watched a man get
I still have the Kennedy theory. The Kennedy theory for me still stands. I argue that John F. Kennedy is still alive, and then he went into that jury room and said, you must convict this white officer. For every 50 black people we put in the jail, we must commit one white man. This is the white man that must be gone.
No, the jury was tainted, everybody. Just fucking admit it because they watched the video.
I mean, but that's my thing. I think about a tainted jury. Like, so let's say you move it to a town over that has a different demographic, has a different group that wasn't affected by the riots. Then you can have a whole other town that's like, well, we don't want, we think that Derek Chauvin is innocent, or look at all these riots. We can't let them win. There's you're gonna get one jury tainted in one way or one jury tainted in another way. That's
Yeah,
my
it
big
becomes
argument.
unfalsifiable at a certain
So
point.
yeah,
It's almost like when you don't, deal with a problem that's been happening for over 200 years, and then the descendants of that problem see situations that might echo historical context. It's almost like you'll never find a jury ever. Weird how that works. It's almost like
down.
What are you talking about? Name one right in America Black Americans have that white Americans have. All right.
So wait, before I got this down to a science. Look, right? Like when you convict a crime, you have the right to a jury of one's peers, right? And peers means equal, right? White people don't view black people as equal, so therefore they want to be tried among white jurors. It's that easy.
I mean, I remember a case a few years ago. I think it was Amadou Diallo. I think it was the 4 officers who shot. I think it was either I can't remember, Amadou Diallo or Abdul William. No, and Amadou Diallo. And they moved the case from New York City to Albany, and the demographics were completely different. And it got to the point where they decided to bus supporters from New York City. There's a whole documentary about it. But
Wow.
and of course, the 4 officers, of course, 4 white dudes. They got acquitted, and the city was outraged. They were like, "No, we can't have this down here. We can't have this trial down here. No one's gonna look at this because this is a man, immigrant who's coming to his home. He was jiggling his keys, and the officers just dumped bullets on him. They didn't even bother to figure it out. This was like one of the very first cases that's like, ooh, but this one's ugly. Then they moved it to Albany, a part of the city, part of the New York State, which is predominantly white. It was the capital of the state. And, they did what they were going to do. We don't think that there was anything wrong that they did in the Bronx. It was dark. Of course it was, of course they had the right to fear for their life. You know what I mean? And it's like, all right. I mean, if you look at the way this thing went down, they drove by him and then they decided, wait, that looks suspicious. Let's just go see what this guy's doing. And then they shot him,
Shit.
That was a long time. Wasn't that like in the 90s? I feel like that was.
Yeah, that was in the 90s.
Yeah. You said a few years ago. I'm like, what? This is a long time, long ass time ago.
Yeah. Well, I mean, okay, I'm pretty old, so a few years ago, I can still remember those.
Okay, all right, no problem. And I think he was trying to hold up his because he didn't understand English or something. He was trying to or not understand English. He was just he wanted to show his identification. And he put that up and it's like, oh, gun, and they killed him. It was rough, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and it's just like moving the venue, and that's why I'm like, thank God they didn't move the venue, because you're gonna move the venue someplace where there's not gonna be any representation for a person like Amadou Diallo.
Yeah.
Of course they're gonna acquit.
Okay. Let's move on to the next topic. This will not cause.
3.
We'll get to topic 3. Unless do you desperately want to do that now?
I'm kidding. We'll
Okay.
go to topic 2.
All right. Okay. Topic 2. As with many demographics, Black participation in the church has declined. While Black involvement in church is still the strongest in America, the trend is still clear. Now with COVID, many have broken the routines of regular attendance. Do you think that as COVID restrictions are lifted, the declines we are seeing will reverse themselves? Or has this year without attendance shown people that they can live without church? And is there any reason not to think that the overall trend of millennials and Gen Z away from religion will continue for following generations? All right, let's go. Be more.
I mean, the decline has occurred before COVID and is continuing with COVID, so I don't see it stopping, and I don't necessarily see it as a bad thing. Fanatic. Overall, first off, you can have your faith in God without going to church, but yeah, I don't really have much of an opinion on this other than there's just no need for church, guys. So I'm not too worked up about it.
Okay, all right, Lyra.
All right, so I am a very religious person. I grew up Christian, although I wasn't always Christian. When I was a kid, I was more agnostic than anything. But like as I got older, I like, started to like accept faith a bit more. So I am a Christian, and my whole family is very religious. I hate church, and I hate church for many reasons. And like, there's a reason why church has pushed so many people away. And with all the lockdowns that happened because of COVID, while all those lockdowns certainly won't help the trend has been like, been happening for decades and is going to continue even after COVID. I don't even blame COVID for the sharp decline in churchgoers because it's been trending downward for a while. And I think it's going to continue trending downward until the church makes some very big changes in their gospel and how they handle their outreach among people. Because I've talked to my friends and even my own family, and I know what pushes us away from church is that Christians have a very nasty habit of preaching hate instead of love. So I promise I'll try my best not to preach, but I think the trend is going to be continuing until, Christians stop being homophobic. They start doing more outreach and doing what the Bible actually tells us to do, which is help people regardless of creed.
Okay. All right. Strong stance. Marks.
Yeah, it seems to be like a common trend amongst most developed countries. I see why it won't affect the black community. Church going will probably go down, and I expect COVID to especially increase church goers because it's in my experience, most people don't find a lot of joy, um, or at least the most joy going to church. Like a lot of people I know see it as like a waste of time, but as far as religious participation across the board, I don't, unless somebody else on this panel could point it out to me, I don't see any reason why the participation would go up. But yeah, that's my take.
Baha.
All right, time to do some devil's advocate shit because I feel like we're all gonna have the same fucking opinion. But
Oh,
I think that maybe it could be good if Well, let me restart. I think it might be better if people had a sense of community, and church is the easiest way to get people to have a sense of community, a sense of involvement in their local, area, and it's typically good for people overall if they need some kind of creed to live by that helps them be a better person. I don't necessarily think it's bad if you want to look to a church just to have, centralized location where you can meet like-minded people that have probably similar values to you if you believe in God. Do I think the church as an institution is bad? Of course. Soy, we hate the fucking church. Like, everyone gets it. The church has done bad things. The church can be a bad institution as much as it can be a good one. But I do think there are a couple key, traits of having, a really centralized place of worship that can probably help the people that need it. I'm not religious at all, but I certainly know a lot of people that do actively go to church, and they're not like the worst people. They're not like super duper, like, God fearing people at the same time, where they, everything revolves around their, religion. But I do think there are a lot of benefits to having churches exist as they are now. I think we're certainly moving past it because of trends of religion declining. But just to play the devil's advocate here, maybe it's not such a good thing in certain communities where the church has a lot of, impact on the local scene, donations, food drives, whatever.
Thanks so much. And I'm not sure we're going to have the same opinion on this across the board, but thank you, Fanatic.
well, I mean, I'm gonna have to break up you guys' party. Yeah, absolutely. I think church attendance is like hyper important, but we have seen a crazy decline. But yeah, people are becoming significantly less spiritual because it seems like in a lot of ways people aren't as dependent on the church. One of the core reasons why the church was so absolutely necessary in like early Black neighborhoods and early Black communities was because churches filled so many pivotal and necessary features. There was a point in time in my mother's generation where Black people would go and they would get loans by getting letters from their pastors in their churches. They didn't have jobs. They didn't have like previous work history or credit that they could be able to say, "Hey, I'm worthy of this." Right. So the pastors would write them a note, and that would be like the way that they would get credit. Like, this is a good, upstanding individual in my church. He's an honorable dude. Yada 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 yada. That's how people actually got loans. I know a lot of that kind of history is lost on a lot of us because the idea of us living outside of a world where credit is crazy, where credit isn't like paramount, is just, that's so foreign. Obviously, if credit has been around since like I was born. So so I think that's absolutely important. But what I do recognize is that the world is becoming significantly more secular, just in general. When you don't have that dependency, it's very easy to kind of dismiss or distance yourself from it. The more successful people feel, the less they feel dependent on the loving, amazing God that's found in the Bible. So I can totally understand why that's declining, specifically among Generation Zers as well. Parents' relationships are kind of going crazy. But yeah, there's crazy benefits to it. I do think COVID's exacerbating it. I'm hoping that there is a change. I'm hoping that all of the death and turmoil and things that happen as a result of COVID-19 will drive people into coming to know the true and loving God and Jesus Christ as their personal Savior. So that way they can actually have more meaningful, more fulfilling lives. I think religion is extremely beneficial in that regard.
Okay, Sundat or Kyle.
Yeah. As somebody who has been less religious as I've gotten older, I do kind of understand to why there's been a decline in the church attendance. But at the same time, I do think that there's like a missing link of spirituality in a lot of people today. And I personally, as somebody who's more agnostic these days, still kind of feels that there's some link to spirituality, even if it might not be the American version of Christianity that I grew up with. But I haven't necessarily tapped into what the that religion might be. And I feel that there's other people who also kind of feel that way as well. Who might not just be me, and that's why while there's people leaving away from maybe evangelical Christianity or just Christianity in general in America, that there's a kind of, I don't know, maybe like not really a yearning, but there's like some people feel there's something missing. And I feel there is some kind of spirituality like link that is out there for people that we should be trying to search for.
KTN.
Oh man, religion. Ooh. Yeah, I have nothing but bad takes about this, so I think I'm just gonna like chill. So I'm okay with it. I haven't stepped in a church in decades. My family is massive, like really religious, and I refuse, don't care. Like, I don't really have much good to say about it. I'm sure there's really good people who are religious, but you know, I don't know. What's that word? I'm a little too against it to have a very
Cynical,
yeah,
maybe?
yeah, yeah. So, for me, yes, not. I'm like one of the worst people to talk to about this.
Joe Lewis.
So we have to understand that COVID manifests itself in miraculous ways, and one of the things that COVID kind of did was expose the wealth inequality within churches, and that's unfortunate because while all of these other white churches have been able to transition to an online approach in terms of doing their services and stuff like that, black churches have lagged severely behind. And something that's even more sort of disappointing about that is that we lead the way in engagement on certain platforms like the one that people take for granted, which is Facebook. Like 63% of black Americans use Facebook to communicate with their family. 60% use Facebook to communicate with friends at least once a day. And that's compared to 53% and 54% of the population. And then also on top of that, 70% of black adults use Facebook compared to 43% on Instagram. And something that also, like on top of that, 55% of black millennials report spending at least an hour a day on social networking sites. That's 6% higher of all the millennials. And something that I think that we didn't get to see because of wealth inequality in churches is that we didn't see black churches who probably had the communities to go virtual thrive. And there's so many things that holding it back, like access to equal internet within these facilities, the actual sort of like teams to be able to broadcast these type of events. And it kind of like really frustrates me because when I see all these churches transition to these virtual services and being able to spread the only reason why we got wind, heat, COVID-19 is because that we had some rich white human lizard be able to transition into an online space. And I wish Black churches were able to see that as well. With that being said, I think that right now, just so we're very clear, Black churches have been congregating in person since the pandemic started, and it's just kind of been sort of glossed over. They're like, oh, this isn't a problem. Like this is a serious thing, especially considering like the risk factors of Black Americans. Now, am I saying that these churches should have closed down? No, I think there should have been a better approach in terms of how we can make sure that they're able to spread their gospel in the online sphere, and that just didn't happen. And there's like generational things involved with that. But I think once COVID, we're in the post-COVID in about 4 to 5 years from now. Yes, 4 to 5 years from now. That's what maybe we'll see the like people just reconverging back into these spaces. Like we can have criticisms with Catholicism, Christianity. It's totally fine and I would argue justified. But this is still a very important sector and a very important group within just the Black diaspora within the United States. I shouldn't, maybe diaspora is not the best word, but within like just Black America within the United States. And I don't think we're willing or able to just abandon that part of Americans' ideology quite yet.
Okay. I won't say anything yet. So we can jump into it.
Oh, go ahead.
I got a comment. What's the most racist day of the week?
Sundays, yeah.
So we already know this, and
right.
I think it's funny. I think it's funny that like when it comes to Christianity, even like when it comes not even Christianity, when it comes to like church and religion, all of a sudden it's like segregation is even harder. Isn't even a harder line. You know what I mean? Like religion's supposed to bring people together. Religion's supposed to warm the heart, and then when it comes to churches, all of a sudden we're all back in our corners, and God forbid. Well, it depends. I mean, I've heard these anecdotal stories of like people black members of church moving into like white churches, and then all of a sudden half the congregation just goes, I'm out. You know what I mean? Because the church got too black. Just things like that. So it's a little, to me, it's a little weird. And then also the idea that like the Black community needs the church in order to like thrive, or in order to like have the other aspects of the community work well. I kind of not into that, because no other community solely depends on their church to thrive. There's other institutions that work well.
You're qualifying this in the worst kind of ways. First off, no one ever said solely depends on the church to thrive.
Not solely, but it's a backbone.
Sure.
Well,
I specifically mentioned, none of these other communities have ever had some of the disenfranchisement that the Blacks have like almost exclusively faced to the degree that we have. Not almost, have definitely exclusively faced to the degree that we have. Like, it's not about oppression Olympics. We're going to do so. There hasn't been any class of people who have been more oppressed that we would be able to identify than Black people, because of the fact that there was literally codified disenfranchisement. Then we were a lot more dependent on the churches. When we were like first freed from slavery, a lot of us ended up having to specifically go to churches. That was where their community was. That's where they lived in the beginning. That's where they first found their first employment. That's where they literally got their food through food banks and stuff like that. And a lot of these traditions have now been like carried over and feeding the homeless and things like that. So the idea is it has always been a
I'm not disagreeing with
community. So
I'm not disagreeing.
But to be fair, is also
was used as a tool to mess up the Black community in general. You know what I mean? I mean, not to mess up, but like the Bible was used as justification for some of the worst things that happened to the Black community. You know what I mean?
Wait, hold on.
That's separate though.
That's a completely different issue. And talking about the fact that very few individuals misused the Bible in order to do that. Like, and while dismissing the idea that the Bible was like almost like the abolitionist movement was like super predominantly Christian, right? So then like the Bible was used specifically to justify the idea that these people had a right to be free, and that was what fueled the abolitionist movement. So,
but like, how hard was that? How hard was that pushed back against by other religious people?
So as I said before, the abolitionist movement was predominantly Christian. So it was mostly made up of Christian. And I don't understand what's the
Other
question you're
Christians
asking.
fought against it like tooth to nail. You know what I mean?
It wasn't mostly a Christian movement. I don't think the idea that there was no Christian identity associated with the resistance to slavery. That wasn't a Christian movement. That was like part of it. The reason why I get to identify the abolitionist movement as Christian is because the Quakers were literally Christian first, and they literally cited the Bible as their reason for why they needed to maintain it. That was the whole thing for that entire movement. Now you had sporadic individual slave owners using the Bible, misusing the Bible to justify their slavery, sporadic individual slave owners, as opposed to a literal movement that was started based on their Christian ideology that led them into believing they were responsible for freeing slavery because of their ideology. Now, people post hoc trying to use a Bible to rationalize and accept the things that they are already doing is a very different thing than basing their entire movement because of an ideology. Those are two different foundational things. And so I think to try to cherry pick and use individuals and as opposed to an entire movement, it just sounds a little absurd, especially considering how many slave owners were atheists and so on and so forth.
What? What? No, I'm sorry.
So-
we got to go back.
so
Hold on, one
before-
second. We got to go back on that one. Slaveholders were atheists? What?
I didn't say all of them were. I'm saying, yeah, obviously some of them were claiming to be Christian as well. But again, the idea that this was like a pervasive thought that slave owners were using Christianity to justify their slavery is just.
They absolutely did. They have.
I didn't say, no. I didn't say that it didn't happen.
Okay.
Again, make sure you're paying attention to the words that I'm saying.
I am paying
The
attention to the
idea that
words
it's
you're saying.
pervasive, the idea that I'm not saying it never happened, the idea that it was pervasive is unfounded. The idea that most of them did it is unfounded. Both of those are unfounded statements.
All right. Just hear me out on this. So let's just think about the time we're talking about. Like the church kind of basically ruled all moral, so for me to say that like it was just slave owners who were using the Bible as a tool to to oppress Black people or people of color or even Indians or anything like that, I don't think that is kind of true, because everybody was religious back then and everybody bought into it, not just the slave owners.
Hold on, we gotta understand that.
Ideology. What are you talking about?
It's not like-
The secular church. What do you mean everyone was? Yeah, see, this is
I mean,
everyone. This is where the problem comes in, right? This is where look. I don't even know if we disagree overall, right? But just check yourself when you start trying to paint an entire organization or try to use absolutes. All I'm pushing back on is this idea that you're trying to create this association between slavery and Christianity as if slavery was justified through Christianity, as if that was the sole reason or that was a responsible reason. It wasn't. It was and then trying to say, well, no, the supporters of slavery were also largely Christian. When it wasn't. That's not the way the movement happened. That's not what was typically the ideology behind slavery. We saw it in both secular and religious societies. That just happened to be a pervasive ideology of people at that time. To try to paint it as Christian is unfounded. That's my point.
So
And
I
also-
want to. Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just a little like I hate talking about doing the Joe Lewis sigh and about to do a historical diatribe on some, but like we gotta also understand that religion was a key proponent in terms of survival during the slave era, during slavery and Jim Crow especially. What that looks like, right? Just so we're on the same page here, is that when Africans were forced into Christianity, they were able to find parts of Christianity and code switch, so they were still being able to praise and worship those who they were worshiping and praising back when they were in Africa. So what that looks like is you might have, I'm going to oversimplify this so that everybody's on the same page. The people that I'm about to describe do not exist. So if you have in your religion Savior or Lord Mickey Mouse, and Lord Mickey Mouse is the saint of lost things, and then you get colonized and then you're forced to worship Lord Kermit, and Lord Kermit is also the saint of lost things. In public, you worship Lord Kermit. In private, you worship Lord Mickey. So what that looks like is you're still able to practice towards the things that you already attached to for the means of, but because you're in this colonized situation and the very idea is that you aren't supposed to be worshiping and just these people in the first place. You're able to survive in that system. Unfortunately, and this might be where Fanatic is getting at, is that there was like sort of two camps of like sort of multiple camps of happening. You have some individuals who once the abolition movement happened, they were able to switch back and praise and worship whatever they were worshiping. Unfortunately, because slavery was so goddamn long, the kind of like sort of the calcification of these code switches ended up just being permanent structures within Black ideology and Black thought. And now again, I'm oversimplifying so much shit in the interest of time, but that's why I think it's very unfair to cast religion, especially in regards to African Americans and Black Americans, as this sort of one size fits all of xenophobia, sexism, and racism. Like, yes, these things exist within Christianity and Catholicism, no different than any other religion in the world. However, we have a special relationship with religion in terms of our survival. And I think it has to be observed, especially considering that there's still a huge generational gap within the Black churches. I think one of the things that we can do, or at least try to strive to do, is to get new faces into these spaces of power, because the millennial Christians and the millennial generation Roman Catholics who are Black have totally different mindsets of how the Bible should be interpreted relative to the old guard. And I think Mr. Fanatic knows I'm talking about too, where like that's an important thing, and I want to see that happen, because maybe we won't be having these same type of ridiculous conversations if the old guard is able to relinquish their power and give it to the very people who have to be in those positions in the first place.
Oh boy.
One time.
Well,
real quick.
Okay.
One time.
Real quick.
All right.
Hey, Lyra, you had something to say?
Oh, did you?
I
go
did
ahead.
have something to say.
Please, Lyra.
So, okay, I wanted to butt in and say, because I whenever topics of religion come up, there's always like this loud voice, just like the elephant in the room, where there's like always people who are saying like, hey, religion is stupid. Look at all these things in history that like religion has been a large tool, a large mechanism to perpetuate, including like racism, as we were just talking about, slavery, all that. And so this has the tendency to make a lot of people go, well, religion is stupid anyway, so we should just throw it out the window. This is a dumb conversation. And to people who think that way, I want to encourage you to think a little bit more critically, because it is very easy. Yes, think more critically, Prime. Because it is very easy to take Christianity and shit talk it and make everything a self-fulfilling, well, I should say self-fulfilling prophecy. Christianity has been at the forefront of many fucked up things in history. But keep in mind, we're not just talking about Christianity, we're talking about religion as a whole. And while religion has a very dark history and has been like the mechanism to perpetuate a lot of fucked up things in history, as with every other group, like Joe said, every religion is guilty of this. Even every political party is guilty of this. It is still important that we keep sight that while religion can be fucked up, there has been, I need to stop saying fucked up all the time, but there has been a shroud of like good things that have happened because of religion. Charity work, okay? We should throw all that out the window just because you decide that religion is for the intellectual, intellectually inferior, because it's not just about that. Religion has helped many people with mental health issues as well. I mean, it hurts a lot of people, but it also helps a lot of people. So we should throw everyone's like emotions out the window just because you don't like religion, Also, don't ever forget that religion is very close to culture. When you decide that we should just abolish religion or we should just forget about religion, you are throwing many people's culture out the window. Okay. So think a little bit more critically. You don't have to be religious yourself, but don't just throw all conversations about religion out the window and decide that anything pertaining to religion is dumb. Because it's a lot deeper than that.
Lyra, I'm so glad you went first. Oh man.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So
you look upset.
I'm just bursting about to explode here. Think more critically when you're talking about religion. I mean,
yes, it is very lazy to decide. It's Christian, so it's stupid.
Yeah, sure. Well, I'll go. Don't worry. Think more critically, and part of this conversation is not like at all about like whether any of this makes sense, and it's like the religion itself is like not complete nonsense. And not talking about fairy tales. Okay, great, sure, but think more critically about religion. All right, moving past that, but we move past on whether it's actually true or not. It's not, but
Well,
to
that's
say
okay
that
to not
to
believe in
say
it.
that, and I don't, but and like I said, we're moving past that because that's another rabbit hole. Fine, okay, but to say that it's I think it's undeniable what Joe was saying previously, right? Like so much in terms of African Americans and their history is tied up with this religion, right? And when he talks about the survival uh, that hinged on the church, right? For so many individuals, that's absolutely correct, right? But I would say that church. That's because church has always been, and religion in general has always been, a great organizing tool, right? A great place to get people in one spot to listen to one message, right? And so it was used very effectively for the civil rights movement, for the liberation struggle in general, and so to this day, right? Like you still see people like using churches to send people to like the polls, right? So the polls, right? Like to organize people to get involved in politics. Great, right? Does that mean that's the only way that we can organize ourselves? Absolutely not.
No, of course not.
Great. Good.
I
Then
think
we
you
agree.
misunderstand me when I say
We
think
agree.
more
We agree.
critically.
We agree. Great. No, but think more critically. So I don't understand. Okay, well then, actually, let me stop there. Let me stop
Do
there.
you want me to say what I meant by what I said?
Try
Think more
it
critically?
again.
All right. So when I say think more critically when it comes to religion, I mean it is very easy to take your own beliefs and so, well, I think religion is a waste of time anyway, which is totally fair for you to believe that, totally fair for you to think that. But you shouldn't let those feelings overshroud all the like talking about all the pros and cons of religion. It is so easy to just chuck everything out the window because religion in and of itself seems stupid to you, but it's not quite stupid to everyone else. You feel me? So when I say think more critically, I mean, try to think more about like the issues at hand, not just your personal feelings about it.
Okay, so that's what I literally just did there, right? Like talking
Which is
about
why
the
I don't know
actual
why you're so upset.
No, because of this idea of thinking more critically when it involves religion. That's amazing.
Well,
it's an amazing
I
sentence.
think I can.
But
I think I can elaborate on a little bit, right? Like one of the problems when people talk about religion is that we're really quick of getting a very sort of Eurocentric perspective at the atrocities, which is a totally valid criticism, right? Especially when it relates to Black Americans. Now, however, like that's why I say the survival, the cultural, like the survival and the cultural survival aspect is so incredibly important. And this is why I really like when people say like, oh, we should abolish religion. It's like, okay, well, what do you do about individuals' culture?
oh, no
And
one
then
said
you'll
that.
get
but,
these.
but were you?
No, I'm just letting you.
curious. Why were you?
I'm just like, yeah. I'm just letting you know, like with the dissenting argument that I hear a lot of the times, where it's like, okay, if we get rid of religion, then like we'll have much better results. It's like, okay, well, what do you do about that? This is ingrained in a vast majority of cultures across the world, not exclusively in Eurocentric mindsets. And then people start sort of squirming, where it's like, oh, well, I never really thought about that. And it's like, yeah, you never thought about that because one of the things about religion, which is unfortunate, is that it is incredibly complicated. And while yes, we can acknowledge the atrocities within religion, there's so much more with that. Even with I laid out, like even on top of the things like when I was talking about the social media aspect, the aspect that I think that Black churches need to get better resources so they can do services online. We're still vastly behind when it comes to just worshiping and moving to things on online services, right? So like
I'm sorry, Joe, you're pushing out a whole bunch of other things here, right? So like now you're going back to the whole churches not having resources. And yeah, I mean, socioeconomically, sure. I mean, you can figure the outcomes of a church by the people who are there, right? And like in the resources they have access to, because that's where the church gets its funding. Sure. All right, whatever. But to say that like people don't understand that churches are religion is tied with culture. Well, yes, we get, who doesn't know that? Who here has not acknowledged that, or who has denied that? Like, what? Think more critically, like about that. We all know. We understand that there's the deep tie.
There are people who.
Well, okay. Well, those people aren't here. Yeah. Those people aren't here. And no one has said here, and I don't believe KTN said that he's talking about abolishing all religion, right? So I don't know where these straw mans are coming from. Hiding them in your closet. But I'm just saying. But like, it's not something that literally anyone said. No one said that.
But I know. But so when I
it doesn't have to be the pinnacle. It doesn't have to be the number one thing. Like if it's falling away, then okay, let it fall away. you know, there are other things people can rally around, or other community things to build up. You know what I mean? And that's my thing. You know what I mean?
Which is exactly what I said as well. I just want to get my point. Hold on. I just want to get my point out. It's exactly what I was saying as well. Is that there's more than one ways to organize humans, right? So the church is extremely effective at doing that. It's an amazing organization tool. Religion has been used that from the very beginning to organize humans to do whatever, right? And we can have an argument as to what that's been used for in the past. But that doesn't mean that's the only way. There are other options. Right. So just because if people are moving away, I would say that as you see people moving away from church, I would agree that you'll find people saying like, well, I don't have a sense of belonging. Right. I don't have a place for me. And a lack of purpose. Like people saying that, I would definitely see that happening because as of now, there isn't a secular replacement. There's none. We just don't have it in a society. We haven't actually built those things up. We've always relied on religion to do that in general. So if we were to move away from religion, right, as the trends are showing that more people are deciding to toss this away, great. Like we actually do have to come up with something that fulfills that need, that empty spot in them. And to say also, well, yeah, culture is embedded in these things. Well, culture changes. True. Yeah, it's deeply embedded in everywhere. But like culture changes. Like that in itself, I don't think is an argument for religion. Is that like, yeah, it's been around for a long time and people have organized their lives around it, organized their family structures, organized their belief systems, organized everything about it. Yeah, well, taking that piece away, right? And no one's saying abolish religion here, but like as people move away, right, naturally move away, then yeah, you'd have to figure out something to replace it with, or there'll be a massive hole in what people do in their communities. I'm done.
I didn't mean to upset you. When I said like when I mentioned the abolishing and that, I was mostly talking to chat because I saw a lot of people in chat talking about like, oh, religion is for people who don't know how to think about things and understand science and things. So I was mostly towards the chat, not as the panel. So
Fair enough.
Yeah,
fair enough.
and even
I didn't mean to.
Fair enough.
and even to Myra's point, like
the smoke then layer.
Like I wasn't even trying to straw man either. Like I basically like my sort of like discourse or diatribe is essentially like understanding that other people are watching this as well, because there is a very large vocal group that is very denouncing of religions. Like we had former streamers who now don't go on panels anymore, who unironically want to wipe countries in the Middle East and China off the map and consider them culturally irrelevant. Like there's a very like deep desire to just wipe some types of religions off the map, but then there's others that are like, I'm kind of okay with this thing. It's like, hang on, like validating cultural genocide in the gaze of religion is by far the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. And I've heard this openly within the politics Discord. I've heard this openly within panels where people kind of dog whistle to that angle. And then when you acknowledge like, hey, religion is incredibly complicated, then it's like, well, yeah, everything is complicated. Yeah, like Jesus Christ. But to Prime's point, the void has to be filled with something. And one thing that I think could be filled is economic conditions, but not saying that economic conditions would totally fill that hole, right? Because even in the face of the most wealthiest communities in the United States, they also have some of the largest church communities in the United States. So there's like this weird sort of thing, like as people transition away, like the money within these institutions still exists. And for some, it's a matter of like making sure that the culture is preserved. For others, it's a matter of making sure their other values related to their immutable characteristics are preserved. But then, so that's like it's a really weird bag, if I'm being quite frank.
Okay, Fanatic, you want to say something?
Yeah, I just think just the idea, it seems like you always have people in the chat that like want to talk about how like religion is not like you don't have to critically think to follow religion. But I think even from like a complete, I don't think that in order to be a Christian or to believe in God of the Bible that you need to like abandon like contemporary science, contemporary history, contemporary biology, or any of those things. There's a really fantastic person by the name of William Lane Craig who has a fantastic argument called the Kalam cosmological argument, and I think it's very, very rational. almost every time I encounter people that want to criticize that argument, it's rhetorical. Do you know what else is rhetorical? Syllogisms. You know what syllogisms do? They provide logic so that you can come to conclusions deductively, and it's rhetorical. If A, then B, A, therefore B. There's no response to that. It's a rhetorical statement. That's not a real criticism. That nigga's smart as hell. And I think religion requires intelligence. I also happen to be a pretty smart individual, and I believe in Jesus Christ and know that nigga personally. You know what I'm saying?
I would argue that a lot of Black people definitely think critically when it comes to their religion, because there's a huge contradiction that we have to face a lot, like we've talking about today. And for people to still be religious in this day and age takes some form of thinking about what you're doing. And even like I said, like even though I'm no longer like I'm somebody who feels that I'm not like I haven't gone to church in forever, I don't really consider myself religious, but as somebody who does psychedelics, I do feel that there is some kind of higher power out there. And even if I haven't connected with them, I don't know exactly what that form might be. I do believe that there's a spiritual other being out there through my own personal lived experience. And that's I've thought about that. And that's just where where I am now. And people have to do their own lived experience as well. Your lived experience is something that you might not have had. I don't know if you do the psychedelics, so maybe you haven't had that feeling. But
Oh boy.
I got a question for my theist. I got a big question for my theist about essentially, why do you think, I mean, there's like research to back this maybe, but why do you think that religion is declining? Because like I know we have like these theist versus anti-theist arguments. It's kind of like a product of the old internet in a way, where that was like the big topic back in the day, to be like an atheist and argue your points or whatever. But I think over time, like I've gotten more sympathetic to theist views simply because I kind of recognize that the naturally declining religious numbers kind of like they spell a decline in religious power in a way, which I think a lot of people, whether they have cringy atheist arguments or not, they're kind of fighting against a religious power imbalance that has been seen throughout history. And in some ways, I'm more relieved because we're not going to have as many religious people, but I do absolutely, see the need for this communal tool. And I was just wondering how theists in the chat feel about what's happening to religion, the numbers wise as a whole.
Unironically, capital C capitalism. So what do I mean when I say that, right? So what, like, god damn it, I gotta be like infrared. Where's my stick? All right, here'll be my stick. Listen, guys, like fucking so basically what you see is a few things kind of happening all simultaneously. The first thing that you see is congregating of individuals transitioning to township squares. Like when I mean by township squares, like community centers, to the internet, right? Like
absolutely,
this right now is an example of that. Like number one. Number two, the concept that like throughout the United States, the economic infrastructure of communities is changing. So historically, what you would see something along the lines of you do your thing, like you marry a nice lady, because back in the days it was only two things apparently, and then you have a couple kids, and then those kids go to school, and then they go to college, or maybe they serve in the war, and then they come back and they work within their communities. And then within that communities, they have kids within that community, and then those kids go to the same schools that you went to, and then they go and they blink up other people within the community. So then like it just starts sort of growing and stuff like that. What we're seeing is that in order to fulfill your capitalist desires, you must be able to branch out and colonize the rest of the world. So you'll see situations where like so many individuals where they go to school in their community, like their high school, then they go to college and they go to California and they get that fresh California air, and they're like, you know what, fuck the cold, I'm gonna stay here, and then they just stay in California. So now they're a member of that community, and then meanwhile what they leave behind is their parents, and then their parents, they're beyond boink age. I mean, they boink, but they're beyond the boink age of having a child, so they don't have, what I mean by that is that there isn't a continuation of family within the community that they create. So then what happens with that? The family transition, like the parents transition into whatever like aftercare facility. Maybe the house ends up back within the family, it circulates that way. But over time, we're seeing the consequences of capitalism kind of perpetuating itself. And it's almost like if you're a true socialist, you let capitalism run its course and it might get rid of religion.
All right, Joe. I got a question for you though, because I understand
was a roller
completely.
coaster.
Like, I understand the point, of course, like the flight from communities. Typically like brain drain. All kinds of stuff. Like people just leave their communities for whatever reason. But why does that stop? The organic thought that lead you to come to see Jesus as your Lord and Savior. That was kind of my question. Like, do the theists see like a reason why that's happening? Is that purely really just because we're? Oh wait, yeah, go off and at it.
I got an answer. It's really simple. Like there's like really one specific commission that we're like given, like in the Bible. Like the very most, we call it the Great Commission, which is crazy. My uncle just saw a poll where there was like less than, I think they said less than 25% of Christians knew what the phrase the Great Commission was, or even knew what the Great Commission was. But that phrase is go ye therefore teaching all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Ghost, right? Like that's like the commission, like where Jesus like tells his disciples, go do this and like whatever. And what we're finding, what I've always found, is that a lot of churches don't do a lot of proselytizing. What they do is they do a whole lot of like kind of like they do this thing about like talking to the people who are already there and like trying to tell them how they can better their lives and trying to tell them what would be more righteous and so on and so forth. It's like this purifying of the purifying of the parishioners, but it's never about like proselytizing. And I think that's where the problem comes, is because the way that these religions grow is through outreach. Now, what's really crazy is not every religion is declining in that way, right? Like we see like Islam is like they're increasing dramatically. They will outpace Christianity, I think he said, within like 17 years. So it's like the idea is, I don't know that all religion is declining everywhere equally. I know it's declining in the United States. Christianity doesn't do enough proselytizing. It's distressing because if you're an actual Christian, if you're an actual theist, then you're monotheist. Then most of the time, like almost all monotheistic beliefs have the idea that like this is the only way to get to whatever, to heaven or whatever they call it in whatever religions. And I think the idea is that like the further we get away from that, there's going to become a lot more problems like associated with just the absence of religion that people like theists believe that religion normally makes people into better people. So then the idea that when you don't have religion, it's going to make you into a world that society in general will degrade in certain ways. I think that's a commonly held belief amongst most theists. And I think that's the scary thing. It's just, but they don't proselytize. That's why people are not going to church.
And I like that you brought up.
All right, Larry, you go first, and then I'm gonna go. I'm bursting at the seams. I'm fucking bursting.
But I like that you brought up like the religion of Islam, because like not a lot of people know this, but like the Islam community has done a lot towards outreach towards the LGBTQ community. So it's like, back to the question about like why do we personally think that religion is declining? I think a lot of it has to do with like all the intolerance that is in the Christianity. And like, make no mistake, there's always been like intolerance in Christianity, but like, as time progresses, is being more and more detrimental to the movement as a whole. And so like, I know personally, like for many of my friends in my family, what's pushed them away from Christianity is like how homophobic and transphobic Christians have a bad tendency to be. So that took me back to that when you mentioned like Islam and the Muslim community, because they do pretty good with that, with outreach into all these communities that are like, continuously disenfranchised, not only by people, but by the state as well. So I also liken like why religion, one of the reasons that religion has been declining so fast is because of homophobia, as we all know, is becoming less and less accepted. And that's a good thing in society. So it's turning more and more people away because unfortunately, Christians continue to be homophobic.
Okay. All right. Oh, thank you. So, actually, before I go off, Lyra, I think that's certainly part of it. I think for people moving away, right? Like they have different ideas than their parents did on these social issue subjects, and they don't see it reflected in the church, right? They go to. There are some churches that do reflect this, right? They do reflect this change, but I think that's you're not wrong. That's the reason why people are moving away. beyond that, okay, William Lane Craig's I'm a fucking moron, right? And I don't know why you would think otherwise. William Lane Craig and his fucking cosmological argument is ridiculous. So I can let you know what it is, right? Cosmological argument is something coming from apparently Aristotle, and use a concept of the prime mover. Anyway, it states that whatever begins to exist has a cause, right? That's the first tenet. Second, the universe began to exist. Third, therefore the universe has a cause, right? And so William Lane Craig goes and says, well, that cause must be God. I mean, obviously, right? So one thing, it's just a fucking thought experiment, one or the other, right? It actually doesn't give us any evidence of anything, that anything exists, like the universe operates like anything else that we understand, right? That time operates like anything else we understand. So it just asserts the fact that, well, everything that I can see has a cause. So it must be that something else has a cause. And then so he adds to the end of that, okay, William Lane Craig. So that was the cosmological argument. But then at the end of it, well, we have to have a prime mover that itself doesn't have a cause, right? So we're gonna put God here, right? And God is a thing that I have decided doesn't have a cause, that I decided is eternal, right? And that must be the cause of the universe. So obviously Christianity equals true, right?
Really
Brilliant. So fucking moronic, dumbass argument. Moving on.
Your understanding of it is what's moronic. If that's what you believe,
okay.
It means, yes,
Please educate me. Please, I'm waiting for this.
I mean, I didn't know we were going to be debating William and Craig, but really, really quickly, it is, yes, the idea that anything that begins to exist has a cause. The universe very obviously began to exist. Therefore, the universe has a cause. And if it began to exist, then that means it had to have been created. The three factors of the universe are space, time. What's the third? I'm sorry. So then whatever created those things has to be outside of those things. So it has to be a spaceless, timeless, immaterial. There it goes. It's space, time, and matter. So if those three things came into existence all at the same time, then whatever created those three things had to be outside of that. Like, this is not me arguing this.
No, it's a moron arguing this.
What I'm saying is this is not. These three factors that I just mentioned are not disputed. This is something that's like in line with contemporary biology, contemporary science. This is the contemporary cosmology, like the idea that the matter, space, and time, the universe doesn't have an infinite past. So if that's the case, if the idea is the universe did have a beginning, then that means it had to have had a cause, and if that cause had to be something that transcended those things, so it had to be a spaceless, timeless, immaterial being in order for the universe to have been created. That's the logic.
So, damn, Miss Kyle, I'll have to get Kyle later because I wanted to talk to him too. But don't worry, I got plenty for you, fanatic. Okay, great. So again, right? So you saw exactly what I just said. Fanatic did exactly what I just said. Creating a special exception for God, saying, okay, God, right? So like everything has to have a beginning, right? So the universe starts, so it must have a beginning as I see it, right? Like these things must operate the way I think they operate. And then beyond that, I just state this is the case, right? And beyond that, it must have some sort of creator that's beyond time, right? That's God. Here we go, right? So we have to make a special exception that everything else has a beginning, right? But except the God that I decide doesn't have a beginning. That's the special exception. It exists outside of time, and this all makes sense, right? And again, without actually proving anything, it's just a thought experiment that doesn't actually have any data behind it, no observations, no nothing actually. So great.
That's wrong. There are observations about like the finite nature of the universe. We can see that the universe is expanding, like it has always been expanding. So that means we have to come to a certain point. The Big Bang Theory is not like that. That's contemporary. Number one. Yeah. Number two. No one's even talking about a specific God. No one even mentioned a God. We just said it has to be a being. Now, if we want to get into a separate argument about who that being is, we can do that. It's literally just a logical argument. Again, the evidence is in the fineness of the logic, right? Like the logic already presupposes all sorts of things that are literally
came before the Big Bang. What came before the Big Bang? What came before the Big Bang?
I mean, whatever created the things that needed to have made it.
Or not, right? Or the universe was compressed. Or the universe was compressed, right? The universe was compressed and then expanded. And that compression, that matter could have always been there. Could have just
but
been.
it wasn't.
How do you know? You know. Okay.
No. I'm asking you the question. If it was compressed, what caused it to be compressed? What created the original matter? What created?
I don't know. I don't know. So I won't assert that I do.
But no. I'm not saying you have to know.
You just asked me.
No. Right. Here's the thing. Right. So the answer to that is, even if you don't know who the individual is, you know that it had to have been created by something.
No, I don't know. No, I don't know. No, I don't know.
No,
and neither do you.
Something.
Neither
right?
do you. No, I don't know that. That something created it.
So I'm sorry. So now, okay. So logically, you believe. This is why we talk about thinking critically.
Oh boy. Oh, thank you, religious person. Tell me about this.
Logically, you believe that nothing created the universe.
No. Hold on. I didn't say that. I didn't say that either. I didn't. Whoa. Hold on. Let me be very clear as to what I'm saying, right? Because you misunderstand it. So open up your ears so you think critically now for a moment. Okay, great. I'm not saying. I'm not asserting anything, right? So I'm saying that the universe, right? The universe as we understand it maybe, because there's nothing else like it and that we can observe, right? Maybe might have different laws, different origins than we understand here, right? Saying that everything that you've seen has a beginning, some sort of creator, right? Doesn't necessarily mean it applies to the universe. So if there is some creator, right, something, some being, something, whatever you want to call it, right, a prime mover that's created the universe, that is actually a possibility. But I have no evidence of it, and neither do you. I'm not asserting anything.
Can we not turn this into a conversation about whether or not religion is real or valid? It's to 100%.
No.
There's nothing wrong with being an atheist. It's okay.
Hold on. Lyra, excuse me. He brought this up, so I'm responding, and I will respond to it. So, I'm saying that you have no evidence of this prime mover, right? You have no evidence that it was a god or anything, right? You're simply a thought experiment you're throwing out there, and like, oh yeah, this makes sense. I got it, right? I have to have no data, no nothing, right? So once again, if you have evidence of this prime mover, you actually do have evidence. Love to see it. You don't. Thank you. All right. And then I would just say to Kyle, that and thanks for being back. And I want to make sure I understood your argument before. You were talking about like you understand there's a spiritual being, and the reason why you feel that way is because you were on psychedelics previously. Is that what you're saying? I wasn't sure. I'm trying to make sure I understand your arguments.
Kind of, yes. I was saying that through my experience with it, I've had like, I wouldn't say I've had like encounters with anything like that, but I've had, I don't know, experiences that have been very profound under psychedelics, and you can hear or you can see accounts from other people who have taken other types of psychedelics, and I like one good anecdote I can give is from a friend who told me about one of their first times about taking psychedelics. He's somebody who was not that religious before taking DMT. That's the drug he took. And he says when you take DMT, if you don't believe in God, it will have you thinking about it, and if you do believe in God, you'll have proof.
Okay, great.
And
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Yeah, that's right. That yeah, that's pretty much where
I was going. I just want to state that that's like a ridiculous argument, just on its face, right? Like, so you're relying on observations when you're mentally impaired by a drug. And saying, "Oh, okay."
Impaired according to who? Impaired
because to neurological science. And then and then saying, "Well, okay, I had an experience, and I'm sure."
Are you a neurological scientist?
Yes, I can read. I don't have to. You have to be a neurological scientist. You have to be a doctor to understand that. Like, oh, this arm is broken. What? No. So
no, but
great,
but we're talking about something. I mean, have you done psychedelics before?
No, hold on.
None at all.
Excuse me. Hold on. Let me finish. So,
I'm just asking.
To say that, well, I had this experience while my brain chemistry was altered, right? And this is somehow any proof at all of anything is a ridiculous statement. I mean, so if you can repeat this, right? So if you're saying like you have an experience, right? And maybe like you've encountered some being, right? Well, we can actually repeat this and contact this being and then like prove that this thing actually exists, right? Beyond you and what's in your mind. Well, then that's something. That is something. But there's like none of that's ever been provided. Like not once, not ever. Like not ever. So
wait, evidence of what? Okay, I mean, you're talking about evidence of God? Is that what you're talking about?
Well, evidence of whatever the spiritual being you're referring to, because it may not be a god you're talking about or whatever it is.
Well, I mean, what if a lot of other people also have had similar experiences and they can also agree with you?
Yeah, a lot of other people feel like when they die, right, that they move towards the light, and that must be some sort of afterlife, except that there's no evidence of that either, right? So yeah, people have lots of different experiences.
Right,
some people think that they've been probed by aliens, like anally probed, but like maybe that's happened. Maybe that's the thing that's happened. They provide no proof of that. So
maybe it hasn't happened to you, and that's okay.
Yeah, but I don't. But even if it did happen to me, no. Here's the difference. Even if it did happen to me, even if it did happen to me, I wouldn't assume that just because my observations that I've had experience doesn't mean that experience is actually real. It actually has any basis in reality, right? I'd have to check my experiences because, as we all know, just like for instance, like eyewitness testimony, right? People have eyewitness testimony, and they're not impaired. They're not lying. They're trying from the best of ability to relate their experiences, and they could literally be wrong, absolutely wrong. We understand this much, right? So
sure. It could be wrong,
just because,
but it could be possible.
It could be, yes. So evidence is needed.
That's fine.
So actual
that's fine, and I agree.
Needed. Okay,
that's cool with me.
All right, fair enough.
We're cool. We agree with that.
All right, fair enough. So
just real quick, everybody, because I see chat's laughing at me because I'm laughing. Why am I laughing at this shit? Because it's so convenient for me to sit here as an agnostic person and just be like, ain't none of y'all know. Prime doesn't know shit. Kyle doesn't know. Nobody here knows shit. Like, oh, I need evidence for God. Show, give me evidence there isn't. This is a full fucking mess.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, whatever.
No,
whatever.
This is exactly
what
I'm
agnostic.
But this is literally exactly. But be more. This is literally exactly what I'm saying. Is that people don't have evidence, and that's why I'm an agnostic atheist, right? It's not that I know there isn't a God.
At the same
it's just like I haven't
time?
been convinced. That's it. That's literally it.
At the same damn time?
No, okay, no. I'll clear this up because people don't understand this. No. It's not three categories. We're theist, agnostic, atheist, right? Instead, it's more two. Like Gnosticism is a modifier, right? So there's Gnostic theists, right, who absolutely know, without a doubt, 100% there's a God. There's agnostic theists who have been convinced, but can be convinced otherwise, right? We're not so sure. And then other side, like Gnostic and agnostic atheists, right? So there's some people who say, like, I absolutely know that there isn't a God. I don't see how you can make that statement. Don't know how you can do that. There's no evidence. And then there's agnostic people like me who have simply not been convinced. If there's evidence, like I'm saying, if anyone can provide me evidence, they haven't. Then I'd love to be convinced. I love to be convinced. But that's it.
I'm just on a different side of the spectrum where I just view everybody equally valid.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. You'll find out when we die. We find out when we die, right?
Yeah. You know what? And I'm down. Hey,
exactly.
Prove it to me when just prove it to me and I'm all good with it.
It's all right. When I become a ghost, I'll pay you a visit. All right.
I'll be like,
that's my question. Can you just like is it a cheat code if you're like at the end of your life to just say, I give my life to God, I devote everything to Jesus Christ? Like, will he take you?
See, that's the funny thing. That's kind of one of the worst things about it, where it's like, okay, so you could be this character for the rest of your life, for your entirety of your life, and then all of a sudden on the way down, Hitler could just say, "Yeah, I'm sorry." You know what I mean? Like,
that's not fair. That's not.
I feel like there has to.
I understand it's not fair. I understand it's not fair, and I picked Hitler. No, my bad.
I'm not worried about that part. It's still a good hypothetical.
No, but it's just like I don't know. Those are some of the things that kind of just make me go, oh.
KTN, right? Like I'm not even religious, but when it comes down to that question, right, I would have to say you can't just simply say, "Hey, God, forgive me." Like you gotta actually fucking believe that shit.
Why not? That nigga's based. He's gonna take me. Like what the fuck? I'm gonna mean it when I'm gone.
I've been like,
I'm gonna mean it.
And if you don't mean it, he gonna grab your ass.
Man.
I've been
Yeah, he'll really know if you mean it or not, right? If he actually has all knowing ability.
If
If you
God's
like say,
real,
okay, I'm
he'll
gonna
know.
mean it, he's gonna know. He's gonna be like, man, you just were saying it. So
I need to ask Fanatic.
if this was the
Fanatic, will I
case.
make it if I do that? Honest opinion.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy because everybody has so many strong opinions about a religion they don't understand. But yeah. So
okay.
answer your question really briefly.
Sorry.
It's really simple. No. I think like the idea that you could accept Jesus on your deathbed. It's not like being on your deathbed is like it's going to automatically preclude you like from being able to accept it. But it does require an actual contrite heart. It does require you to actually truly accept him as the Son of God and accept him in your heart. It's a really simple thing to do, but it does require like you to be genuine in it. So if it's not something you can genuinely do, no, you can't just superficially say some words and then hope to get in there.
I guess it depends, right? 'Cause I feel like if I'm on my deathbed, I'm open to anything at that point, right? If I'm already dying, I'm on my way out, I'm open to anything. I truly believe that someone could be convinced on their deathbed that God is the way, especially if they acted. I'm just assuming, right? I'm not like a terrible person. I'm assuming that me living my life as a good person fundamentally, along with my deathbed motivation, my deathbed hype, is going to let me get loved by God.
Hey,
You're not saying it's impossible, right?
That's what I said. Is it's definitely not impossible. Like it's like again, being on your deathbed doesn't preclude you from it. But
that's all I need.
But again, the idea is it's not something that you can just say I'm open to. You have to truly believe. You have to truly accept.
Weren't you one of the people who said that you like asparagus? That you're.
Fuck yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, then on that terrible person thing, I'm pretty sure you're out of luck.
Hell no.
I'm sorry,
you know
buddy.
God's got hella
I'm sorry. No, heaven
hella
cannot be
asparagus.
filled.
You got all the
no,
vegetables.
no, it's got to all be
Garden
burned.
of Eden, though?
No, but yeah,
Come
Garden of
on.
Eden is made of meat. It's made of meat, obviously. Like you got slabs
But
of
you know
meat
you got
hanging
some banging
everywhere,
ass
right? You got
asparagus,
porterhouse steak. You got bacon. You got all kinds of cuts. That's what the garden. How do you guys not read the Bible? I guess I'm the only one who read
Prime,
it.
you're
I'm the only one who read it.
It's like it's so hard. Like situation, it's so hard to ever have like an actual productive conversation about religion because whenever religion is in the topic, it always devolves into well, I don't believe in it because of this. Well, you should believe in it because of that, and it's always like banter back and forth. But what we really should be doing is looking objectively at the topic at hand. Like it's okay to not believe in religion. It is okay to be religious. Let's look objectively at what we're talking about instead of it always. I hate how conversations of religion always divulge into like, well, this is X, Y, Z. Religion is fake because X, Y, Z. I don't believe in God because of this. And then other people are like, well, you should believe in God because of this, this, and this. It is so unproductive. It's very unproductive because in the long run, it is okay to be atheist. It is okay to be religious. Like this is it's not even what the topic was about.
Does this run into Fanatic's problem though, which I think I agree with, where it's like if you have this idea, right? Well, I guess it depends on what you value initially, but if you want religion to continue because you want people to be accepted by Jesus and go into heaven, ideally, I think that's probably what you want. I don't think you're allowed to really be like it's okay to be an atheist, right? Like, am I wrong on that? I just feel like that goes against the proselytizing, that goes against enlightening people.
One thing I want to say is that Christianity, with religion in general, is like largely up to interpretation, right? Me personally, other Christians don't believe in me. You know, I have plenty of people in my church who go, no, everyone who's not a Christian is going to hell. They believe that. I don't believe that at all. I personally think that everyone is free to believe in what they want, be able to see things the way that they want, and and that doesn't make anyone inherently a bad person. Everybody is valid, and they can believe in whatever they want. Everyone doesn't have to believe in the same thing I do in order to be a good person, and that's my take on it. Which is why I always get so frustrated whenever topic could just not even be about religion at all. It always divulges into like a banter, this side versus that side, and it's just like, why does it always have to be one or the other? Can't we just look objectively at what we're talking about here?
For sure, I hear you.
Yeah.
So yes, I do say that there's nothing inherently wrong with being an atheist because there isn't anything wrong with being an atheist. Because like, I mean, if you want me to preach, I'll try not to. But like, we have free will for a reason. It is so that you can make your own choice. And like, as a fellow human, I believe that I have no right to judge you for whatever choice that you make.
For sure, I hear you, but here's my question. So I get what you're saying about being a good person, but I'm talking about the end game, right? I'm talking about end game shit. Like, if
about
you're
whether or
really,
not people go to heaven.
yeah, I'm starting to think if I genuinely do believe in heaven, I don't, but like I'm just saying, if I were a person that was, I think I would have to be like the kind of person that like hands you like a Bible on the side of the road Like, I think you have to do that, because otherwise, are you not doing a disservice to your Lord and Savior by not helping more people find?
You are.
Right.
Like, again, there's a great commission, like, that you literally are required to proselytize as a Christian.
For
The
sure. Does
idea
that mean
is,
Lyra's bad? Does that mean she's doing the wrong thing?
it's not my place
church
to,
you
it's not
doing?
my place as a Christian to ever judge another person. Like, we're not allowed to judge other people. That's like literally like
Also,
replete
just
throughout the
because I'm
Bible.
a Christian, I'm religious, doesn't mean I have to force it onto everyone else. If someone wants to learn about Christianity, then yeah, because we are largely a missionary, faction, then it is my duty as a Christian to, teach people who want to learn about Christianity. But I'm not going to go ahead and force everyone to be a Christian, because that's a terrible thing to do. And everyone
But
has
if you
a
know
right.
they're going to hell, isn't that worse?
But there's an enormous middle ground between forcing someone to be a Christian and proselytizing in any capacity.
Yeah,
I don't
that's
think
also what I'm
that was the
talking about.
question
Yeah.
he was asking. So yeah, the
Oh, then
idea
what
is
were you
like,
asking then?
I'm just saying,
should we? Do we have
yeah.
any sort of
Lyra,
moral responsibility?
Is it
Li-
wrong for you not to if you know that person's going to hell, presumably otherwise, but not going to heaven? Like, that's what I'm
Biblically,
talking
yes,
about.
it's wrong. Biblically, yes, it's wrong.
I'm not a Christian. I don't believe that you have to be a Christian to go into heaven. That's therefore. I don't think you have to be a Christian to go into heaven. I personally, I know a lot of Christians don't agree with me, but I personally am not of that take.
Lyra,
Okay,
I had
I
a
hear you.
question for you about that. Like,
Yes.
because you said that, that seems to me, I'm not an expert on it, but that seems to be like a core aspect of like Christianity and like
It is.
almost
It
like
is.
most like Abrahamic religions in general. Like, if you don't believe in this, you're not, at the very least, you're not going to heaven. So like, if you don't believe that atheists go to hell, like, what do you think happens to them?
I'm sorry. You said if I don't believe atheists go to
Or
heaven, what do I think
non-believers,
that's what?
sorry, non-believers don't go to like heaven. Where do they go? What do you believe?
Oh, well, I think non-believers can go to heaven. That's the thing. I think whether or not you get into heaven is more so dependent on whether or not you're a good person. I mean, it's totally cool to be like of course, since I'm a Christian, I think it's more optimal to be a Christian, but I don't think just because you're a non-believer, you're automatically going to hell. I don't believe in that at all.
Fanatic.
Yeah, so
And that again, take it back to like, I'm sorry, I'm cutting you off, Fanatic, but but that takes me back to like my opening statement, where I think a large issue of the Christianity as a whole is that we're too intolerable of everyone else. Like, if you're gay, you're going to hell. Okay, if you're trans, you're going to hell. If you believe in any other god, if you're not straight up a Christian, then you're going to hell. And I think that's why like so many people turn away from the church, because Christians historically have been very, exclusive and intolerant. And I think that's a stain on Christianity as a whole. Maybe people don't agree with me, but I think Christianity is about loving people first and foremost. And like part of loving someone is letting them do, what they believe in. I'm not going to force my religion down anyone's throat, but if anyone wants to learn about it, then I will tell them about it.
Yeah, so I mean,
Fair back.
I think obviously the most important thing in Christianity is love and loving other people and being tolerant. I think those are like literal core tenets of the thing. The thing is, I don't put a lot of stake in other people's personal beliefs, right? I think we have a Bible for a reason. I think that the Bible is the ultimate authority on like salvation and just all of the other things. So like anyone can espouse their personal belief, anyone can claim a title, but I think when you start getting into what it actually means to be a Christian, like what comes with that title, typically it does involve some sort of fundamental belief in the text and the scriptures. And so again, anyone has a right to say or believe whatever the freak they want to. Whether or not those things stand up to scrutiny, I mean, how do you scrutinize those things? It's probably going to be through the text itself. So for me personally, I absolutely believe that the person needs to be a Christian in order to go to heaven. And it is a bit of a challenge. It is something that is concerning when there's less proselytizing, because then that means people who literally haven't accepted him, they can't reap all of those things. But beyond just heaven, beyond an afterlife, actually having God in your life while you're living is, I think, probably one of the most significant things. I'm in a significantly better place. I look at just financially where I am, where I couldn't have been had it not been for God. I look at like the gifts that I've been given, such as my musical ability and things. I look at those as gifts from God. I think all of the evidence pushes towards that. So just the peace that I have typically, the more forgiving nature that I have, just the stark change in my life, just as a result of having God in it, I think that's enough. So I think it's really important, and I feel sad for people that don't have it. But again, I let people live their own life. Like it's not about judging people for right and wrong. It's about knowing, like, hey, this is what the Bible says, and so that's accurate. I hope to God that people find them so that they can actually get all of the benefits that I intend to get.
For sure. So definitely, if you're not a Christian, you're going to hell in Fanatics book.
Okay. Yeah, in the Bible itself.
So
yeah, for sure.
I'll have to leave that. I'll have to leave that part from Fanatic alone. We're just gonna have to move on. KTN, do you have something a last thing to say?
Oh no, I was just gonna say, as a Christian, I mean, about to move on to this next topic. So, you know, how do you feel? How do you feel about being a fan of this next topic?
Okay, so yeah. Anyway, so yeah, I'll just have to leave that on. And then to Lyra, there's not a fucking topic that's ever been on my panel that we haven't actually drifted from. Like, if you're expecting, I'm just saying, you're expecting for us to ever be on topic, we'll never find it here.
It's just frustrating when every religion is brought up. It always just divulges into why people do and don't believe in religion, and that's just what I don't like, and I find very frustrating. Obviously, I've known us to always stay on topic, but I get kind of tilted when that happens to religion because it happens every time.
Okay.
It feels like I could never actually talk about religion.
Okay. All right. Moving on to topic 3. Topic 3. African American involvement in porn is well established and a staple of the industry. In mainstream films, the way blacks are depicted is largely controlled by white directors. Do you think a world without black involvement in the adult film industry would be a better one? Or do you think that black sexuality, no matter how it's depicted, offers an overall net good? All right, this is a fun one. B more. What do you think? Is it good to have African Americans featured so prominently in porn, or is it overall bad?
There's nothing wrong with watching some good black on black fucking, plain and simple. Now, that doesn't negate the fact that porn is extremely fucked up a lot of the time. And I would like to see more black directors, more content geared towards black people. And yeah, that's pretty much my take on it. Porn's awesome, you know, sex workers are awesome. It's all cool. I like people enjoying their sexualities. And that's pretty much my take on it.
Let's go to Lyra.
All right, so the porn industry has always been notorious for not only degrading like women, but like minorities in general. And it's been like, it always like, you know, belittling down people's identities to like stereotypes and caricatures. Porn is very like notorious for doing that. But I personally think the issue is a lot deeper than just porn, because at the end of the day, the reason that happens so much in porn is because there's such high demand for it. So, you know, I would definitely like to see it stop happening in porn. But, you know, there's a lot of other avenues that we need to bring that into as well. Personally, I think fixing representation in the media is much more important because, I mean, you're going to get a lot more people viewing a movie than one porn video in like a sea of hundreds of millions, you know? So I think like the issue of like fixing how not only Black people, but like, you know, everyone, well, not everyone, but like minorities and women and just how we are represented in the media. I think that's, it would be more beneficial to fix that as a whole. And I wouldn't dwindle it down to just a porn industry issue, although it is definitely an issue in the porn industry. And then going off on that, I think that we should, when it comes to the porn industry, I think my priorities a lot more. I'm sorry, I'm falling over my words, but my priorities are much more in line with like, you know, allowing sex workers to have more rights and creating conditions in which they're not coerced into like, you know, these videos against their will. So that's more where my priorities head for how to reform the porn industry. But bottom line, I think the issue is a lot deeper than just porn. I think it's like a media issue overall.
Let's go to Marks.
Yeah, no, like May others said, notorious. I mean, porn is notorious for having like racist tendencies. You know, we all know those videos. Ghetto ratchet black girl gets plowed by a white master overlord. Like, porn is just filled with those titles, and encouraging those stereotypes. Should we discourage like black people from doing porn? No. People of all different races want to do sex work, including black people. I see nothing fundamentally wrong with that. I see that if we want to fix these issues, it has to be from the inside out. There needs to be, I don't know how, it sounds kind of weird to like protest porn, but like there needs to be like some movement for more accountability within porn, so that there's not there's less sexual assault victims and more minorities get represented and treated fairly. So,
Aha, who I'm assuming is old enough to talk about this.
Yeah, dude. I'm 22.
All right.
I look young as fuck, but
All right.
overall, I think porn degrades everyone. We're all on the same like page with that. I hope to see. It's one of the nastiest things that you can look at on the fucking internet. Everyone's looking for their little kink to get off with, right? So what's gonna happen with black people in here? Of course, we're gonna have, you know, a lot of fucking terrible stereotypes. A lot of stereotypes that beget like positive racism. I think whatever is the term for it. You know, black men have huge dicks. You know, it's only good for some people that actually have huge dicks. Not good for everyone to be stereotyped that way. Black women are like usually. Have you guys ever seen those like bleached things? Like the white people that are mad that black exists, so they have white guys exclusively fucking colored women. It's pretty racist. I don't know if you know
That's
about
fucking twisted.
It's fucking twisted. It is. It's bad. Overall, I think that we're not going to be able to just get rid of black people from the porn industry. It's not going to happen. But however, we do live in the best era right now, this OnlyFans era, where you can go and support your local sex worker that you want to support. Like, we have to let people, you know, I don't know about the directors in porn. I don't know how that whole thing works. Porn as an industry, like the business side of it, seems super fucked up to me. It's just like everyone's just doing whatever the fuck they want. Go to Miami. I don't know. Do whatever you want down there. But fuck the directors and shit like that. Let's have more people that want to be involved in the porn industry. Start their own, you know, whatever, OnlyFans, whatever. Get paid through those means, and we kind of like get rid of like the porn hubs and all those places that have like, you know, a lot of sexual abuse like stored on their servers. Have a lot of like fucking just videos from people that don't want the videos up on their servers. There's a lot of terrible things that go along with that. They're starting to purge that. I think I read an article about that. Like now you have to be verified to be on Pornhub. That's probably good.
Let's keep it down to a minute,
yeah.
minute long. Sorry.
Oh yeah, okay.
Okay. And no,
love porn.
I don't agree on I don't agree on the thing that you said before. That it degrades everyone. But of course, fanatic.
Yeah. So I think yeah, I think porn can be degrading. Like everything else, it depends on how you use it. Obviously the racism exists, and it's pretty absurd. There's all of these random things where like sometimes even things that like are supposed to look beneficial, when you really look at it, it is like super harmful. So the way that they depict black people in general, I think it's kind of based off of the way that this was like what literally galvanized the KKK. I think there was that movie Birth of a Nation, and in that movie, it was about like black men having like this crazy lust for specifically white women, and they used that like these white actors in blackface, and like this man couldn't contain himself. He saw a white woman bathing or swimming or something and couldn't help and had to go rape that woman, and all of that kind of nonsense. And like now we see very often you have all this porn that's like very much just about depicting black. Cause the same way how they have the racist stuff with the white dudes, they have the racist stuff with the black dudes, where it's like, yeah, black guy. Well, it's not necessarily racist. Black guy destroys white wife while husband watches and cries in the corner. Like, you know what I mean? Like that stuff exists. It's some of the most beautiful fan fiction I've ever seen. But yeah, so the idea is it can be extremely harmful. I'm into that though.
Sometimes you gotta destroy it though. Just saying.
Okay, well, this is a thing that's happening. Thank you for that, fanatic. Sunbat.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm definitely going to echo most of what you guys have been saying this whole time. I guess moving on to the question of would a world without black involvement be a better one? I would disagree. You know, if there was, I mean, unless you were talking about them doing some like their own separate thing, or if they just be removed completely, because like you said, it's bigger than just the industry. Media representation is much bigger than just porn and there's so much more that would have to get dealt with than just like doing like a, I guess like a boycott, so to speak. I don't think that would be better for the industry. I mean, most people watch porn and consume it, and so if there's not people who look like them in it, that also would be nice. So yeah, so
KT,
get my minute in.
KTN.
Yeah, I mean, talking on the topic of like black people, like a world without black people in porn, I would be kind of. I don't think that would be like very productive. I mean, porn in general, uh, it's gonna always be bad in my opinion. There's no one's interested in watching clips of lovemaking. You know what I mean? I don't think anyone's ever, and I understand that it's gonna be weighted more negatively towards the black community. And even though everyone kind of gets their fair share of like bad stereotypes and their fair share of, well, no, not their fair share, that gets their share, but not their fair share of bad stereotypes. But I just think that yeah, black creators, yeah, fine, go ahead and do your own thing. There's a good amount, not good, not enough, of black directors and black foreign content creators. The OnlyFans thing that Baji was talking about, yeah, man, get the OnlyFans popping, do what you got to do. But I don't think running away from it is gonna help. But I also think once again, like porn isn't really made for anything positive in general. I mean, it's a quick fix. It's a quick fix for most people. It's not the place where you go and get your like your sensual your sensual mind like stimulated or anything wild like that, or get your so it is what it is. Porn, it's not meant to be positive. It's just meant to be a vice, and in what comes out of vice, stranger and stranger vices. So
Joe Lewis.
I'm not hiding my power level for this topic. Look, man, the porn industry is racist as fuck. Like totally racist as fuck. And then it's like there's this idea of like, oh, like what with we want black performers outside of porn. It already fucking happens. Okay. Spoiler alert. You're not gonna see black actors and black performers at the biggest level of the porn echelon, right? Like Pinky, right? She is one of the most famous black porn actresses ever. Skin Diamond, Roxy Reynolds, fucking Ava Fox, Aaliyah Hadid, fucking Maserati, Naomi Banks. But you're not going to see Naomi Banks on AVN. You're not going to see Pinky on Vivid. Fuck that shit. It's going to be all those skinny white bitches with fake tits because that's the shit that actually sells. And at the end of the day, like, it's so frustrating because we also understand that people get paid more for interracial. Hello, and instead of a fucking affirmative action, that shouldn't fucking exist. Your rate is your rate. And despite the fact that a lot of these porn actresses are held under fucking contract, some of them don't even have a choice to do what they can do for their scenes. So you have black actresses who participate in scenes that are grossly racist, grossly sexist, grossly xenophobic, and there's nothing they can do about that. People seriously fucking believe that Mia Khalifa just thought, oh, I want to do porn in a hijab, like she had a fucking choice in the matter. At the end of the day, like the shit has to be reformed, and for whatever reason, they've been getting away with it for fucking years. So I wouldn't even say get rid of porn. I would argue that you gotta federalize the fuck out of it, because right now in its current state is absolutely disgusting.
Okay.
Be more sex worker.
Hard agree.
So,
yeah, I agree to that.
I disagree with some things that.
Yeah, come at me, Prime. Come on, let's get it
Oh
started.
no! Oh no! I wasn't gonna come to you. Maybe I'll save that for later. Right? Save the best for last. Just KTN. So I disagree. That people don't want to watch like loving porn, right? Like there's like quote unquote like girlfriend porn. I guess is a thing that exists, where things you show to your lady, right? That like, oh, we want to get into this, right? And it's not so extreme. That's actually there is porn out there that's about loving couples, right? Or couples. I don't know if they're actual couples, right? But couples, right? Doing like.
But what's the popularity?
Oh no! But hold on. I'm just saying. I didn't talk about that part. All I said was that it exists. You said people didn't want to see it. I'm saying there are people. There is an audience for that. That's all. That's all I'm implying. Yeah. Now, in terms of popularity, it's what Joe's into.
It's frustrating, right? Like we understand that there is an over fetishization over black features, right? Like, and that's just something that is just true no matter how you slice it. Like, people in the industry acknowledge that it's true, people outside the industry acknowledge that it's true, and the metrics acknowledge that it's true. Despite that fact, nobody wants to fuck with that industry, because what happened? That sector of individuals, like, the only reason why people know who Pinky is because, you know what? Fuck this industry. I'm gonna do my own shit. And she did this during the porn dark ages. During the 2000s, I don't know if anyone remembers this, right around the turn of social media. So, like, right around Facebook and Twitter started coming up and Tumblr was king, porn was in the underground and was fucking everyone, because people weren't paying for tapes anymore. People weren't paying for DVDs. I told you, I was hiding my power level on this topic. I'm so glad it's coming up, because it's so fucking goddamn frustrating, because you have porn actresses, mainly black porn actresses, who were leading the way and taking back control of their own destinies when it comes to this industry. And despite that, despite their popularity, they still get fucked. And then like, there's this whole like galvanization. Like, Lisa Ann talks about how she hires majority porn actresses, but then she talks about how it's so captivating, the three-dimensionality that is of large black hands on a white female body. Like, go fuck yourself, you cunt. Like, it's so ridiculous how internalized the racism is with these actors. It's so ridiculous how internalized it is with the directors. And don't even get me started on the director aspect of it, because it's painfully white. Even Blacked, which is one of the leaders, one of the top 5 search sites across all platforms, is run by a bunch of white dudes, because it's run by fucking Vivid. So it's like, what the fuck are we doing? Even when we make a space that's supposed to be designed for black people, it's really just a spot designed for IR. And I'm sorry, spoiler alert, IR is only black male and white women. If you are a black woman and you're having sex with a white man, that's not considered IR, and your rate doesn't reflect that. But you know goddamn sure that white male actor is getting paid more than that black actress. It's fucking ridiculous.
You know what? If Joe Lewis ain't holding back, I ain't holding back either. All right. Somebody mentioned OnlyFans earlier here. You know, hot take: OnlyFans. If you got an OnlyFans subscription, if you buy OnlyFans, that's bad business practice. I'm not gonna lie. Like, just in general, you should never, like, there's obviously porn, like, a lot of free porn sites are unethical, but there are some like ethical porn sites. You can look them up. I think ManyVids is one of them. Like, as far as like paying for porn, bro, like, you can support the community, I get that, but like, that's bad business practice to me.
Fuck off.
No, porn is a human right. It's a human right.
So shut the fuck up.
It should be national.
You gotta pay for people's labor, you piece of shit.
Yeah.
You are no Marcus
But maybe saying
pay for your paver.
Look, that's the reason why you don't show your face, is your takes are this shit.
Wow, B-Mo. We talking after this.
The reason why I'm so passionate about this, like, my prescriptive.
You gotta pay everyone fairly. I get it. You gotta pay everyone fairly, especially in the porn industry. The porn industry, that is, like, you know, that's a different level of like acting. And yes, for one actress to make, you know, $1,000 a shoot, and then for another actress to make $10,000, you know, there's some real fuckery in that. So yeah, I can talk about leveling that stuff out, but still, the bad part is in demand. You know what I mean? The demand is basically is basically the biggest problem. You know, because there are people who want specific things in porn, and a lot of those people who want specific things are pretty nefarious. You know, and so what are we going to do? We're going to start shutting down nefarious porn, you know, because then we get into a different thing. You know what I mean? We get into this thing where we're like, okay, well, we're just going to shut down, like porn that's pretty much, you know, exploitative towards black people. But I mean, and it's hard to articulate this, because it's like. I'm not saying that
I kind of get what you mean, right?
I got you. KTN, I got you. You ready?
Foremost.
You ready for this shit? Mia Khalifa, right? Mia Khalifa has 11 videos that are on the internet. I don't know what your search results ever tell you. Like, why is Mia Khalifa always on my fucking search results? Spoiler alert, she's only made 11 videos. She has made, from those 11 videos across 3 months, $12,000.
No, she's lying. That was a lie. That's not true. So there were a bunch of people that, like, Bang Bros themselves, like, already mentioned that, like, when she had a career long before she was with Bang Bros, and like the amount of money that she made from them alone, they like had receipts, and it was like, yo, we've paid her close to $122,000. There's no way she only made that amount of money.
But do you think
she's lying? But she's definitely lying.
So real quick, so do you think, however, that porn actors should be able to get some type of revenue on their appearances on sites like Pornhub and Xvideos.
Sure,
Oh, yeah,
like, but that's a different question.
Right. Because that's the point I'm trying to make here. That's the point I'm trying to make here. Where in some situations, you'll have situations where the actors or actresses will get their just due from those sites because they're just too loud to ignore. As an example, Lisa Ann. If you use Lisa Ann, she's going to collect. And she's made it very, very aware that, like, if my video exists on your site, I'm going to get my check, period. And she's like a very deep deal with that. But she's also connected as fuck, so she's able to get that pressure. However, there are some actresses, as an example, Maserati, who have been featured from other websites of other actresses with same type of clout like Sarah J, and she doesn't get any reparation. Basically, it is reparations for that because essentially, like, she has labor. There's other sites that are monetizing her labor, and she's getting no cut of that. And that to me is like one part of it, which is why I argue, like, if there's a prescription thing that I would argue, is that the shit has to be centralized and there has to be actual workers' rights for porn actresses.
Well,
actresses, period.
Unionize the whole system. That I would completely respect. And at least every person, regardless of popularity, every person's going to get paid particular check for a particular appearance, for a particular shoot, for a particular position, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Fine,
right.
That'd be great. You know what I mean? But then, for the bigger issue, but like I guess like the bigger issue that where it gets nefarious is like what kind of exploitative things after everyone's paid properly. Then what's the next hurdle? You know what I mean? After everyone's paid properly, then do you go into the ethical thing of like, okay, well, now that African Americans are doing particular kinds of like distasteful things, do you try to crack down on that socially? Do you try to crack down on that?
It can only be moved culturally. It's the only.
What distasteful things are you referring to?
I mean, there is an overabundance. There's an overabundance of there's an overabundance of just like
racialized porn, essentially.
Yeah, racialized mandingo porn, or like but the worst part about it is the overabundance is due to the demand. You know what I mean?
I was gonna ask, so wait. So you would say that like a black guy that does porn where he's going and banging somebody's wife while her husband's crying in the corner, like that, you would say that
that's a very specific on that one.
That's my type. That's my type. Yeah.
I don't even care. Like if
is that degrading? Is that bad?
I mean, it's degrading to some people. I'm one of those people. I'm like, yo, okay, if that's what you want to watch, go ahead and watch that. You know what I mean? But a lot of people take umbrage with it. You know what I mean? A lot of people do not like the way the porn industry depicts people, even if they're being paid fairly, even if they've completely signed on to it, even if that's their thing. They like doing that. They like being this person who's portrayed as an object who does this, that, and the third. So people take issue with that. You know what I mean? And it's not like completely correlate, but I remember there was one guy, Mo the Monster, and he talked about how he does shoots. At one time, a director wanted some girl to just be like, "Yo, yeah, call him an N-word, and he was like, "You stop shooting." He's like, "No, I'm not with it." He's like, "I'm not doing this." And the guy's like, "No, come on, don't worry. Let her do it." And he had to stop the shoot. He had to stop the show, and then he did his lawsuit after that. You know what I mean? And I think he's still fighting it in court. I don't know what the full details are, but like, that's when you need these kind of union protections. If Mo the Monster is like, "Yo, I don't want this in my contract," then no, gotta respect that.
Sure.
All right. Well, jumping in on this, I think like these two issues are they're kind of one and the same. They're very connected. I don't think they're mutually exclusive. And I'm talking about like how the terrible representation of people in the porn industry and how degrading it is, and also with like sex workers' rights. So like when it comes to what reform to go with the porn industry, I am very much so that like I think we first and foremost we should be focusing on making sure sex workers have rights in their contracts, making sure erasing the conditions that leads to them being coerced into making these like degrading, dehumanizing videos. And like because that's part of the problem right there, because you want first and foremost, you want sex workers to stop being forced to like make these videos that they may or may not be agreeing with. But that's the foremost. But
what do you do? What do you do also if you are a performer who wants these things in your contract. You
Well, that's
want
the
to
thing. That's why we want to make sure that when it comes to like reforming the porn industry, I'm more so like, let's get consent, because there are people who have kinks for these things. I don't want to kink shame people, but first and foremost, I don't want any sex worker to be put into a situation where they feel forced to make these videos that they don't want to, where they are coerced to like act in these dehumanizing roles, and then on top of that, they're not even being paid fairly for it. So when it comes to reforming the porn industry, I think that should be our main focus, our priority. And so then after that, like say we, if everything goes perfectly, everyone's getting paid, no one's being coerced, sex workers have more rights because, hey, sex work is work, in case you didn't know. What do we do about these nefarious, I believe, as you put it, porn videos that are like, like you said, like black men, plowing
no
people's lives.
black robber, black house robber,
Yeah,
black
like weird videos about that. What do we do with that? So the
black
weird thing.
boogeyman, black dude in the bushes,
Yeah,
stuff like that.
yeah, a lot of them,
So,
a lot of crazy videos like that.
whatever.
So here's the thing about
like white suburban housewife. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I know what you mean. So like here's the thing about porn. Porn is the ratings that come from porn is because of how taboo it is. Like there's a reason why step bro, step sis videos are so popular, even though I assume most people would agree, hey, that's fucking weird. And that's why that porn is popular, because I mean it's so taboo. So I think it would be counterintuitive personally to start like shutting down these videos. I think that would only make them more popular. And porn industry, capitalism, as long as people have demand for it, they're going to want to buy it. So when it comes to like how to fix how people are represented, minorities are represented in the porn industry, I think the issue is much larger as a whole, because I mean, if you stand back from the porn industry, it's only like, a manifestation of how Black people are represented in the media as a whole. Like I get so angry when I watch a movie and like the Black woman is the promiscuous person, the whore, the person who steals the white lady's husband, and when Black men are like shown as like the sexual beast, the liberating person for people to have sex with. And that's like not just that does happen a lot in porn, but it happens a lot in media as a whole. So it's a much larger issue to fix rather than just porn. But then again, how do we go about fixing it? In terms of how exactly we could fix it, I don't know exactly how to go about it, but I don't think just shutting down those poor videos would be enough. I don't think that would be enough.
There's plenty of benefits. Like I've always obviously always spoken about my job as a musician, but I also moonlight as a person that services white men's wives, and I feel like that's something. If that's my job, like I don't want that to be shut down. That's the end of my end.
Well, yeah, that too.
All trolls aside, there are direct benefits. I'm not gonna lie. There's also like a lot of harm, right? Because at the end of the day, when you start objectifying people, that's always going to be a problem. And to be honest with you, I think all porn like inherently pretty much objectifies people. I think there's plenty of harm in society that we can like literally measure as a result of porn. I would never ever advocate for it. I'd never advocate other people to watch it. If they're gonna watch it, it should be about Black men destroying white men's wives. But at the end of the day, I would never recommend you do that, because again, that's incredibly harmful. I don't think it's a good thing to happen. I think like legitimately, I think they said like 25% or 20% of like all internet usage right now goes to porn, and like it's crazy because like there's like rises, like there's rising in like virginity rates, because I think there's a lot of people that got their hands and aren't really out there pursuing women. Marriage rates are declining.
I mean,
I do agree with you, because if we do like just shut down all ebony porn, all ebony porn hypersexualizes Black women, and we just shut it all down. I mean, first thing you're doing is you're taking a lot of sex workers out of business. And at the end of the day, we want people to have a better quality of life. So like we need to be careful about that too. So I do agree with you in that respect. You were saying something, Joe?
Servicing, and people need to learn how.
Yeah. This is I don't know how to word this out. This is a question for Fanatic. So you're telling me that the only porn actress you would support in making sure, like, if we are in a situation that you described, that the only porn actress you would support then is like Kendra Sutherland, right? Am I understanding that correctly?
I genuinely don't know like any porn people's name.
Okay.
Khalifa and Janet Jack Me.
Okay.
I don't really watch
These
porn.
names are killing me, dog.
But have fun with that. Have fun with that question.
Look them up. Don't Google anything here.
Name
Oh,
your
the
favorite
monster.
sex worker in
Janet
chat.
Jackman.
Name your
I'm just
favorite
saying
sex
the
worker.
real ones know. The real
Jordan,
ones
bro.
know
If you
exactly what I'm
support
talking
the
about.
black community, Jay Jordan. That's all I got.
Joe, you're on point right there.
Literally,
That's
I didn't
she's
watch
the one.
porn.
That's the one right there.
I didn't really watch a lot of porn growing up, like specifically, like it was like hyper like shunned in my religion and like just the way that I was brought up and like whatever. So I never ever really got into it. The only time I finally got into it, I'm gonna say it was like 2016, maybe I want to say, where it was like my friends exposed me to the idea. Someone mentioned the word cuck, and I was just like, "What the freak is that?" It was such a mind blow to me, and then I got into that, and then that was like I was just watching a whole bunch of that for a while. It was really, really toxic. And I've like literally abandoned it now. I don't watch any porn right now. But like that's the only like real thing that I ever really got into. And it was some amazing stuff, but it's terrible. It's terrible. I would never advocate
right.
for it for anybody.
So like another thing that like, god damn it, I'm really gonna fucking invoke random laws that I know related to this topic. All right. So does anybody know anything about Epic Systems v. Lewis? The TLDR of Epic Systems v. Lewis is that it prevents basically what essentially does. I'm going to try and oversimplify that. I would love a piece go tag in, but basically the court said the private sector workers can be required to settle disputes against their company one-on-one through arbitration. So what that looks like is that, you know, like let's say you are one of the many let's say you're one of the many black men who have had their fun with Kendra Sutherland, and you're like, yo, why is Kendra Sutherland making 5 times more figures? You'll understand why I say the 5 times figures in a minute. Why we're making so much more money than we are. Let's say we all want to work together and sue Black to for our just wages. Surprise, motherfucker! Only one of you can step forward, and then it's like, oh, your argument isn't that necessarily based because you can't basically work together to pressure a company to give you some type of settlement. I'm oversimplifying that by a lot. My brain was able to shit that out of there, so I might be misrepresenting certain semantics of that, but I'm pretty sure that's like the general gist. Again, like maybe if I am incorrect, I'll revise my take on Twitter. But basically, like I just want worker rights for porn actors. That's just what I want. Like centralized bill of rights or centralized like rules of engagement that don't allow certain things like the use of historical hate symbols within scenes, or the use of certain culturally sensitive things to be used, such as hijab or niqab, which gets used a lot, like
that's that's what I've been wanting to ask about, right? So it seems like we want like a federal plan for this. Do you guys know of any like precedent that has been set for this in like other countries, or do you guys like know like even how you would like want to advocate for this?
So and if this is so, maybe I missed something here, Marks, but like, are we actually serious about doing like some sort of federal intervention into porn? I think it's a terrible idea.
I think we could do the same thing actors do and just get a union. I mean, actors like it, TV.
I would rather support some type of centralized workers union, and this is something that's been talked about, like, because what that looks like is the porn industry is a very small connected group of a handful of actors and actresses. Now, within that group of people, there is interest in unionizing and making sure you can like do your own thing and navigate how you will freely. Unfortunately, what happens is because these companies, and there's just a small handful, are very invested in maintaining the status quo, they will be met with opposition that has a bigger dick than Amazon. Like that's one of the biggest fears, because if there is a worker, like a labor movement for porn actors, and I 100% support that, they're going to need some type of congressional assistance in terms of like not only support and exposure, but unfortunately, it only seems like one side of the electorate would be in very least in support of making this like a workers' rights issue, because it is a workers' rights issue, in my opinion. But like, I mean, okay, so to be fair, we could get Matt Gaetz on board, but a certain type of porn is banned. Like, so we already set the precedent there, so he's not watching anything.
Like conservatives wouldn't want to get on it because also this deals with exploitation of women. You know, it's like, they love women. They love to make sure women are, protected in the workforce, I guess. I'm just joking, but like, but like, no, it would prevent child porn. It would prevent child porn because it would put like federal regulations right then and there that like, or union regulations like, okay, cool, this union says you can't be this age, you can't lie about it, compensated, and with those union regulations, you'll have rules. You know what I mean? And people who love rule of law, why can't they get behind that?
Because like asking conservatives to get behind something like that means that they have to acknowledge the existence and normalization of porn, which they're just never ever going to do. So like it's like there's already another step that there's a presupposition within that, is that if in order to do this you have to normalize it, and they're just never ever going to.
I mean, right now nationwide, people are apparently, from the news that came up, they're right now. A lot of prosecutors are saying we're not going to prosecute prostitution. If the country's going in that direction with something that's like that's like that's kind of a little more illicit than porn, why wouldn't they get behind? I mean, I understand what you're saying.
The Republicans.
Yeah, and I think and it sucks because the only way I think they would get behind an opposition is they would go after individuals like Pinky. All right, I'm not hiding my power level. So Pinky is a porn actress. She's a big booty porn actress, really famous. She's one of the first ones who said, "Fuck the industry, fuck these contracts. I'm gonna do my own thing." So what did she do? She did everything in the eyes of the law that she could do. So she was a porn actress. She was a stripper. She was a pole dancer. She was an escort, a literal escort where you paid her to just go on dates, period. And she made a lot of money during that. However, something that happened was she still is, and openly making a little bit of too much money that might not be, claimed in terms of taxes. So something that my concern is with all of this, because we're not dealing with the sole problem, and these actors and actresses are going into other parts of the industry because, spoiler alert, stripping is part of the porn industry. Like, they're going to end up striking down or stepping down on different avenues of the problem without, I don't know. I think Republicans are going to target that first, if anything. Whether that be sites like OnlyFans, and then they're probably going to start looking towards strip clubs, and they're going to start looking towards like legal escort services and cam services, and then slippery slope, they're going to be looking at Destiny debating Richard Wolff and start asking like, where's this money going? I mean, that's a little bit of a hyperbole the last time, but
so when it comes to like what to do, so when it comes to like if we want the government, some kind of federal reform when it comes to like sex work, my take is that like both the right and the left have a very bad habit of whenever it comes to sex work, it always divulges like subconsciously into sex bad. So like, because like I think it's ridiculous that because sex workers are workers, and workers as workers, they do have rights, and the amount of rights that sex workers have, it's like ridiculous. It's ridiculous. So I think it's like ridiculous to say that like we shouldn't have federal stepping intervention onto this, because like they're workers, they do deserve rights, and if it takes the government to make sure that their rights are recognized, well, so be it. Because like at the end of the day, I mean, you could hate porn with all your heart, these are still workers, okay? These are still their jobs, and we need to make sure that they are taken care of. Too often, like we're talking about Republicans a lot, but there's a lot of people on the left too who also don't want anything to do with sex work. We talked about this on a previous Amazon Lily here on this chat about like how sex work is viewed by both sides, and like
recap why people on the left don't want anything to do with sex work. Could you just
because the left has a very bad habit of being very elitist. And very placing themselves on the pedestal. So as a kind of like a mini recap of Amazon Lily, Merrick came on and kind of told us about how like she's always getting bashed by leftists on Twitter because they think it's like a kind of counterintuitive that like she's a woman, she's a feminist, and yet she is also a sex worker. And so while the right is like, you more so think about the right being intolerable about these things, the left is guilty of it too. Because they think it's like kind of counterintuitive to the whole feminism take, but like that's just blinding us to the whole side that sex
those
work.
People are dumb as fuck.
That's women hating. That's women hating on women, though, right?
Well, it's the left. It's left hating on sex work, whether it's women, men, because men do it too.
I have friends who dislike the porn industry, and they have their reasons. I'm not going to speak for them, but it's not necessarily the take that Lyra has. Now, obviously, different people have different takes on these things, but I'm just saying that's like not like the only take. That's why some people dislike the sex industry or porn industry in particular. So multiple things here. I like what Lyra was saying previously about protecting workers and making sure that whatever their participation level is within the system, it's like as voluntary as it can be under capitalism, right? That they aren't being exploited, that they have choices within their contracts. They don't have to be being forced to do those racially insensitive, we'll just call it, actions, right? So I think that's fantastic. And beyond that, though, when I originally was talking about this question, I wanted to talk about like the actual depictions people see. So in mainstream porn, when it's controlled by white individuals, right? When they have complete control of like the capital, right? So they control these businesses. You will definitely see one type of depiction of African Americans, right? And it's a type that they feel sells well, and that's what they produce. But there's also now other options for people to break into the business, to explain, to show what they feel Black sexuality can be, right? So from the amateur scene, like, do we not see? Do we actually see anything better when blacks have the option to put what they want forward, or is it just is it more of the same?
Black on black amateur porn is fire.
Yeah, amateur is like literally the way to go, because like then you get this real feeling that these are like actual couples whose wives are saying like being offered these things. And I think that makes it so much more beautiful, right? Because it's just like, oh, this is authentic, right? Like I think yeah, I don't know, that's all I had to say. Yeah,
it hits different. Plain and simple.
Yeah,
a lot of like
the move away from Pornhub in my intro statement. This is all
a lot of
bad.
A lot of the bad faith porn too used to be at one point would be dudes who were getting video of themselves sleeping with some other dude's girlfriend as like payback. There would be those videos where like have a dude be like, "Yo, fucking yo bitch," and then it would just be just stuff like that, or like quick little embarrassing exposés like, oh, like this other dude across town, I don't like him, so I'm gonna fuck his girl, put it on my cell phone, and then put it on the internet. You know what I mean?
Terrible. Like the guy needs to be in the room watching his girlfriend get destroyed.
It just has to.
Listen, this is why in this space we don't stand Alexis Essex, but Kendra Sutherland is an American hero. She's given so many Black Americans jobs. Now, are those the jobs that you want for your economy? I don't know, but she's definitely improving the social conditions. Okay.
Support businesses.
Promise you, I'm done.
Like so something that the Prime is alluding to is that there is a particular type of woman that gets platformed in porn. And you ready for this? White, 5'5", medium-sized tits. Period. And what that looks like, you get different variations of that. Different variations of the exact same thing. Every once in a while, you get some outliers, right? You get your Maura Hills. Right, or Myra Hills. And Myra Hills is Black, and somehow she made it through that sea of bullshit. You're going to get the Lisa Ann's every once in a while, right? You're going to get the Kelly Devines every once in a while. But even then, like Kelly Devine, despite being incredibly famous, like is still blacklisted by some actors. No different than Lexington Steele. He is blacklisted by some actors. And because in the porn industry, you have a blacklist. And your blacklist, because they fucking gatekeep their blacklists, are sacred because your preference is your preference. However, don't talk to any of the old guard about about why they have black actors on their blacklist, because they're not going to give you an answer that's kind of like sufficient. With that being said, like there is a cookie cutter of women gets platform, and even within just like the black women, it's always sort of mid-size, petite black women with relatively fair skin and relatively, whether it be straightened hair, and it's like weird how that works. So even in the variety of like, oh, we like black people, we still like the cookie cutter just of a different fucking skin tone, which is gross. And again, like there are outliers. There's absolutely outliers, but the vast majority are the exact same body type, exact same feature set, just change the hair color and change their voice and change their mannerisms when they try to act. Like, and it's basically the same shit.
So
Look, Joe, wait up.
Okay,
Joe, I need you to do the community a favor, right? And make a list of your approved porn stars, right? Diversify it.
Kendra Sutherland. Kendra Sutherland is the only white porn actress I support.
I didn't say just white, okay? And then compile a list and distribute it. Okay.
Your favorite content creator.
You will be doing
content creator.
I know we're not talking about religion
not...
no more, but you will be doing the Lord's work. Okay.
Listen, I'm not a connoisseur. Maybe I'm not a connoisseur. Maybe I'm basic. But what about Lena Rhodes?
Lena Rhodes? She has the. I'm so sorry. I'm about to do this to you, Marks. She doesn't fuck black guys, or she's very selective about black guys because she's concerned it might compromise her future dating opportunities.
Oh, fuck!
She said that. She said that.
Wait, really?
Hey, put her on the ban list.
Damn.
Oh my.
On the ban list.
But okay, so what Joe is saying.
I gotta delete that video now.
Oh shit! Did you torrent
Pretty sure it was Lena Rhodes. I might be mixing that up. If it's not Lena Rhodes, I'll correct it on Twitter.
I'm gonna fact check this, Joe. You're putting too much on the line for this. I can't.
What Joe is saying is
that's why she's doing all the Blue Chew commercials.
Actually, what I was going for. It's not actually at all what I was going for. He just kind of took it in his own direction, which is fine. I thought it was an interesting direction. In terms of this blackness, I think it's interesting, and trying to salvage this is that you'll see that there'll be white women stars who will have on their list like or have that they're not going to be involved like interracial. They won't do anything with black men, right? This is a thing, an option, right? And it should be an option. Like if you don't want to, you don't want to, right? Like, we don't want to force anyone to do anything, right? But on the other side, when it comes to black women, they don't have that option. Don't have that reverse option. You're saying, "Oh, I'm not going to work with white guys," because then you will simply get blacklisted. By that I mean like you'll be thrown out of the industry altogether. It's like you cannot make it there if you aren't doing that, if you're an African American woman. So I mean that's part of the racism, right? Because we don't have control of it when it comes to mainstream. You don't have control of any of these things, right? Then you just have to do as you're told. And since there's no representation or nothing, right? There can be no response from these actresses, right? Unless they completely like make their own production company, as Pinky did. The show keeps alluding to right there. So I think it's interesting how these things work out. I think it's interesting what Joe said before, that interracial really only means black man, white woman, right? And it's interesting that that's a thing. It's interesting that you have to get paid more to do it, right? As if like, oh, we have to make up for you putting yourself through this. It's interesting that a lot of stars, actresses, get advice when they start off the business. Well, no, don't do porn with black men. Because it'll damage your future career. When that's like plainly not true. It's like
sorry.
Isn't that like insurance? Because then she's gonna be destroyed and not be normal afterwards.
You gonna need a wheelchair? Is what you're trying to say? Is that what it is?
Oh
there can only be
Oh my God.
there can only be a few.
I'm
Fanatic, I think we're both banned.
You
I'm
a
sorry.
Christian man, bro. You a Christian man.
He out.
So I mean, okay, all right. So, but I mean, like, Fanatic has a point, right? Like, there's only a few people who might be white or white passing that are allowed to be in wheelchairs, and I think it's very important that we acknowledge that those individuals are Jimmy Brooks and Professor X, like those, like, and that's okay, right? But so With that, Jesus Christ, that's a bad one.
No, I mean,
Twitter's gonna be fun tomorrow.
Can't that be chalked up to an issue of like also their marketability and power? Like I understand that black women in the porn industry don't have the option to say no to certain other stars, but also does that have also something to do with the fact that the black women aren't, like Joe said, as popular in porn unless it's something degrading?
They'll make every excuse as to why they don't they like on both sides of the ball. There's like so many 1,001 excuses why directors won't use black actresses or black actors. There's 1,001 excuses why black actors won't do IR. Like there's just like 1,001 reasons why women won't do IR. But
Why black women don't have the option to say no to white actors, like Prime was saying, as opposed to white women having the option to be like, I'm not going to touch this dude. You know,
well, the thing is like, yeah, so like your contract's your contract. So what happens is a lot of these, when you break into the industry, what tends to happen, like this doesn't happen for every actor or actress that makes it big, but this tends to be the norm where you have a fire Instagram. Somebody within the industry like reach out like, hey, like we'd love to see you for like an interview of some type, and then like they coerce you into like, hey, this is just like a couple scenes, and then that's it. You sign your contract, you get a handful of scenes, and then you're done. But during that time, you don't have control over what you can and can do. As an example, like for Nikki Benz is an actress who, despite under contract, God, this is weird. Why do I know this? Despite under contract, she wanted to do IR, and that was like her like thing that she wanted to do. Like she wanted to do IR. Yeah, like that's the thing. Like there's a Vlad interview about this, like where she wanted to do this. She had a very like key point of like who I want to do it with, and the thing is that she didn't give a fuck about it within her career. It's like this is what I want to do. But because a lot of these actors are under contract, they're just told like these are the scenes you're going to do, which is why you get roped into these really awkward situations.
But
and
that's
then
the
they even
bullshit.
compartmentalize this. Like
that's why I would agree to, you know, either if you're in a union or just, Wild Wild West OnlyFans, kinky stuff. Because the thing is, right now, if you want to talk about people who want to break into the porn industry, and even if they're people of color, you know, the for me the wisdom would be just to go the route of being like, you know what, I'm not gonna go for this casting couch first deal just so I can make that quick 5,000, you know, for that very first scene. You know, I would almost say you're just better off doing literally, especially if you're a person of color, or a woman of color, you're better off going straight to OnlyFans and then trying to shoot your career from there. Now, if there was a mechanism in the black community, like if there was a site or a platform or something that could facilitate that, then that would be even better. You know, but it's just really like you said, it's the early stages is where these bad practices get locked in.
yeah, so like as an example, right? Oh god, here we go. So as an example, like one of the things within like the media cycle of it, well, OnlyFans is a great platform, despite its fucked up corruption, all this other bullshit. It allows creators to filter into other things. The problem is that filterization is a little bit bizarre. So like if you start out on OnlyFans, you have to basically make sure, and as the relative the community coomer now, is that you have to make sure that your other accounts filter back into each other. So what does that look like? You have Tessa Fowler, who started out on Instagram, who then got a job, who then like branched out to Twitter, who then branched out to doing a couple scenes with Pinup Glam, and then she did OnlyFans and exploded. But then like that's not like this like the true trajectory. Some actors and actresses have a corner to certain parts of the market due to certain characteristics for them, so it's a little bit easier for them. Who's an example? Hitomi Tanaka. Hitomi Tanaka had a very clear niche that she filled for a lot of individuals, and then she went the reverse route where like she was famous because of her niche, she got branched out to other aspects because of her niche, and then she went through these other routes. Now, unfortunately, even for her, she was under contract, but because she had a niche, for those again for the scholars in the chat know exactly what I'm talking about in terms of her niche, is that she was able to get a lot of work because of her niche. But a lot of actors and actresses, they're just attractive individuals who have a good social media presence, and then the company just wants like to put them on for a couple things and then see what happens. But sometimes like you need that continuation of work in order to grow a brand. Like you can't just grow a brand, I would argue, with a handful of scenes. You want to do things in a way that like constantly pumps out content. But if a company says you're doing 3 films in 2 years, or sorry, like say not 2 years, excuse me, like 3 films in a month, it's like okay, what? Like that's my only content. Oh, and while you're under contract when these films are releasing, you can't produce any other work. And it's like okay, thanks. And for a lot of black actors, that's what they want to do. It's like some black actors, like God damn it, here we go. Like God, what's his name? He got blacklisted and he's out of the community. I forget his name, but he's a black dude with a hammer. But basically, what would happen is that he was under contract, but he was still doing other work. So he was just blunt about it. He's like, I'm gonna fuck who I want to fuck, and there's nothing you can do about it. And then the industry was like, and the contract that he signed, or like the company he signed to, was like, okay, bet. So they sued his ass, and he lost. And essentially what happened was, it's like, oh, I'm not gonna don't hire this black guy because he doesn't understand what contracts are. So don't hire him because he's going to breach your contract. And that's the worst blacklist ever. If a company blacklists you, then you're fucked because everybody's going to know about it. But if like one actor or actress blacklists you for X or Y reason, then it's like, okay, it's whatever. Right? You can like navigate around that. But a company blacklist is insane.
Are you talking about B Punk?
Sure, look. What?
The Lawrence Fishburne thing. Like with Lawrence Fishburne's daughter, that was actually absolutely tragic. Just absolutely disgraceful. But here's the thing. So, what I was gonna say was the fact that there is blacklisting, right? Like for these people that are willing to sleep with black dudes, like not from the white wives, but like the other ones. That is, I think, one of the biggest problems. It's like indicative of how much racism there is, right? And like taking it out of the porn industry. Do you guys remember like how much outrage there was when Lauren Southern was dating a black guy? Y'all remember that?
No.
Wait, Lauren Southern?
Lauren Southern. Who's the other one? She's a really blonde chick. She was like on the conservative.
Tommy Lauren.
Tommy Lauren.
Remember?
Oh yeah. I was like, are you sure? Because Lauren Southern is Xander Hall's mom. So I was like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
For real?
No.
I don't know.
What are you talking about?
Yeah, no. Tommy Lauren, when she was out there and she was getting, she was dating some dudes, some black dudes. Do you remember? They were like a collection of all the messages, like of all the people about like, you've just disappointed me in the worst way, and blah 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 blah. And like, I genuinely think that like that kind of racism, I think it is inextricable from the porn community. Like it has been there and ingrained in these people's mind for a long time. You see it all the time, even in just real life, where you have these white girls that go around like, I only date black guys. Anytime you have women talking about I only date black guys, there's some like when you have white women saying I exclusively date black guys, it's typically with some sort of fetishization. It's not just like a genuine like, oh, I'm just interested in that, right? Because like I don't know. Like the fact that you would like reject your own race and say I'm only dating this thing, to me is pretty much indicative of some sort of.
You know what? This is why, like, unironically, seeing Lisa Ann at basketball games is actually cringe. Actually cringe.
Who is
because
she?
Lisa Ann,
she's a legend. She's a legend.
But she's cringe as fuck because she, like I mentioned in my opening or somewhere in this diatribe that I did, that she predominantly hires black actors for her scenes. Period. Like because she understands that like it's really hard to get in the industry, so she hires out. But another thing that she caveated, and this is another insane Vlad clip, where she acknowledged that like there's a level of three-dimensionality with like when you see like large black hands on a white woman's body.
She likes the contrast.
And it's like I'm sorry, what?
I mean, if that's all it is, then that's. I mean, is that it? Some people like that.
It looks nice. It looks.
Some people like the like literally what that says is like, oh, I like the contrast. Like that's the thing. I don't know. I feel like that's not like damning, right? I think on the other side there was that Mariah Mills chick that you talked about. She only dates, only does scenes with white men, and she pretends otherwise, which is fun.
Well, why do you think she gets some of the most work of a black woman?
Of course.
But back to what Fanatic was saying, like, you know, first of all, if you're so wrapped up in, you know, like all the people are like, oh, you know, I'm watching porn and my favorite white porn star is getting slayed by black dudes. That's a sad. Like I have no sympathy for
Lame.
those. You know what I mean? Like I have no sympathy for I don't even think that they like it's for you to be going into porn and being like I'm so involved in these scenes and these lives that I don't even know why. Like it's another level where I'm like, why are we even respecting these kind of opinion? Like no offense, but like I'm like this is porn. Like you're not here for you're not here for real reasons. You know what I mean? It's a pit stop. Like you're here for a pit stop.
Yeah, very real
so,
reasons. What are you
wow.
talking about? But I want to.
This just attack.
It's not real. What's
This
going
just
on
attack
here?
against Joe will not stand. I mean, like, holy crap! Like, what? Like, oh, I don't. Okay, so I kind of reject this. No, but I reject that. Like, you can be into anything. There are lots of like areas like that. I find weird that people are really into. Like, they have a deep fascination with. No. Hold on. Let me finish. There's lots of places that I just find it odd, right? But like that's their thing, and like if you happen to know a lot about that thing that interests you, that's fine. I actually cast no judgment on anyone for that thing, whatever that is.
I'm not talking about the backstories and the science and all that stuff about it. What I'm talking about is the idea that Fanatic was saying that, like, you know, is people in this medium where people are so enwrapped in like racial identities of their porn stars that if there is a white female porn star who starts to do black scenes, that these guys are on their computer with one hand clapping and one hand slapping and being like, "Yo, why are you doing this to me?" Like, I don't understand. Like, this is like until VR comes up and you could like be in the scene there, but I don't understand why.
KTN, that's already a thing. We have. Hear me out. You ready for this shit? Because sex technology is a whole ass industry. It could be a whole ass topic. You ready for this shit? I'm about to blow your mind. So here, imagine the world VR, right? So you have sex toys that connect to VR, that connect to Bluetooth, that connect to your Wi-Fi, so that you can share vibration patterns with your partner through VR with their VR models. That exists.
Oh, I'm sorry. You know too many porn facts. You know too many porn facts.
Yeah, you are a niggas like had like a whole like show on that.
I think you could write a lecture.
I'm telling you, you could do a whole panel on sex technology because the shit is bazagness.
I want to ask a question, right? Do you guys think that the racial preference or the racial categorization in porn is problematic in and of itself? Like inherently, you feel like searching up like, I don't know, Arabic double penetration in and of itself could read to like real world like discrimination or like bias.
Well, I hear if you type black enough in the search history, after a while you start getting sent to just Umar Johnson videos. That's what I've heard. Like,
no, but I'm serious. Like, I've heard arguments for this before. I want to hear you guys' opinion.
Nah, I like looking at black women, so I want to click that button and then filter out all the other shit. Sorry,
I do think they need to ban slurs though. They do need to ban slurs.
Okay. I want to talk about that.
So I can actually talk about look, the craziest thing is very often whenever you're looking for like for specific titles with racial categories, specifically if you're looking for black men destroying white wives, they will show you a bunch of other non-that. It's always like, I feel like you're like trying to filter out everything else besides just that, and they will give you literally everything else. It's gross.
Yep.
No, you got to look up ghetto predator
to give credit where it's due. To give credit where it's due, Pornhub cleaned up their act. Like through the centralization of verified accounts that filtered out
no,
the videos. Yes, it deleted.
They deleted my vid.
It deleted 98% of my favorites. Okay, I understand. I'm with you on that.
I know you liked my vid. I know you liked it.
However, I will say that like they did take a crackdown of like certain things that they're just like they accepted. As an example, right? There's three types of porn comments. There's the great video, whatever. Random dude who's probably not from the United States who wants to marry somebody in the video. And then you have the individual who writes this weird, like, I guess, a Tumblr manifesto about the racial fantasization about the lives of these individuals. And it's like, and they use just every slur under the bus. And it's like, how did this comment just make it on the internet, and it's just chilling there. And then people like will say things where it's like, well, this is why whites are the superior race. Like, I will never allow this in my house. Just advocating for violence.
Joe, you were on fire with this.
It's always like they lead you into it, right? They lead you into it where it's like, I really don't understand anything that's going on with this video, because in society we shouldn't have white and black people mitigating each other. It's like, whoa, I thought he was talking about the acting because it sucked.
Pornhub philosophers.
That's why I think it is so ridiculous. People that are so locked into their porn that they think it's reality. I mean, yeah, it's acting. I mean, like, yeah, there are some actors who will rivet you, but there's not a single porn actor who rivets me enough to be like, oh.
Yeah, and to be fair, right? Like, this doesn't only happen in porn, right? Like, obviously the new Resident Evil taught us that. But like there is like this is over fetishization of individuals in comment sections of porn sites that are just overly racialized, and because they don't really have mods. Because I guess being a mod on a porn site's kind of unpopular, but they just let it just sit there.
Joe, wait up, Joe. Do you treat
Be more.
wait up, KTN, wait up. Do you do the same shit you do to articles? You just skip on to the comments when you click on a video?
My girlfriend and I's pastime is reading the comments.
Oh,
we don't
that's
care
beautiful.
about the video. We do the title, thumbnail, read comments.
Hey, I watch porn for the plot. There. I said
Bible true.
Yo, that sounds like marriage material. Just saying.
I'm just kidding. I've never watched Bible Black.
We all have. We all have. Deepest lie. You all had. You discovered hentai in the first place. That's the first thing you ever watched. Like, holy crap. But
listen, I am a reformed man. Okay, my
No, you're not. No,
I'm
you're
totally
not.
reformed.
Into what?
So,
what do you mean, Mark? What are you talking about?
So hold on.
No, never mind.
It's okay. Be more though. You said something that's really interesting, and I don't know. Maybe we have to take this. Maybe we have to save this for another all black everything, or maybe we take it into the walk on panel. I'm not sure, but like saying that you only watch one particular race, like your own, right? Which is interesting, right? Not that I'm saying that you shouldn't have that right, but like it's interesting. But what if like
in my defense? Okay. No, go ahead.
What if
I'm defensive already?
What if a white person said the same thing, right? It's like, well, I don't like seeing black bodies, right? Like, would we draw any conclusions about them?
Listen, there's nothing. Let me rephrase this. For me personally, I am an equal titty employer. However, it is a little bizarre to me how people have like these exceptions on preference based on skin tone, where it's like they'll say shit where it's like, Leanne Crow is really hot, and it's like, okay, but I really like Myra Mills or Maserati. Well, Leanne Crow and Maserati have the same body type. And it's like, well, it's just something about her. I really don't know what it is, and it's almost like I feel like it's just like, just say it, just say it. And it's like, I don't know what you're talking about, bro. Like, I'm just saying that the Leanne Crow and Maserati. I just think Leanne Crow's a little bit hotter. I don't know what's going on.
So, but be more.
Name dropping is immaculate.
Sorry, that was the be more.
Yeah.
I'm about to dig a hole here. I mean, to be honest, I just like looking at black women. What's wrong with that?
No, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. I love black women.
Now, to be honest, black women are extremely diverse. Different shades, different languages, different nations. So I don't consider myself racist or nothing. I don't know. And I'm not colorist because there's so many shades.
No one's saying that.
I know. But it's like, I don't get the question, though. It's like, what?
No.
So if a white person does it, right? Let's get down to the bottom of it.
Okay.
Why the fuck not?
If
a white woman wants to see white girls get railed by black men, then she should be able to press a button and that kind of stuff. Just like you should be able to go on Tinder and just swipe for the black men in hopes of getting railed. Like, people want what they want, and I think there's a difference between doing it out of like curiosity, interest, fun, versus doing it out of hatred, right? Like, I like black women, not because I hate white women. It's no, like, hell no. But to me, that's the overall difference, right? So that's my take on that. Unless I dodged the question. I don't know if I did.
We get into weird territory when we try to find out why people like the things that they like, it's always weird, and we can always assume that someone is doing something based on. There's a lot of people for sure that are just like have like racial bias and who they want to date and shit like that. It's always going to be an awkward conversation to try and like find that out in a person, because it's really hard to verify that.
No,
unless
sorry.
they give you an overwhelming reason to.
You're absolutely right in Baja, but and I feel like this is a conversation we had previously, and if not, we're definitely going to have it.
Yeah, I'm down for it. Invite me, because I got some answers for you, Baja.
So a question on like your dating preferences, and is it weird when some people decide to date like either their own race or another race? It was something we've been dancing around here. Have we done this on All Black Everything before? I don't remember. Joe, you've been around here like the longest.
Yeah, we did kind of, right? Because I remember talking about how my dating preferences were very exclusively
Pakistani,
and it wasn't even.
That's racist. That's
it
racist.
had nothing to do. It had nothing to do with.
No, cancel
and
him.
the thing
Clip
was
it,
like
clip
I did
it.
like so I never really understood it until this sounds all right. Here we go. So I
let's get
never
it.
understood what was wrong with it until I was around more Black people. And what that looks like is that like I had this sort of internalized bias towards like I only like white women. And that's like kind of just what I thought. But I didn't think of it like that. Like it was just like I had like a particular preference of ex-girlfriends, and then that kind of lingered into like the people who I was interested in. And then like over time, maybe just because I just got older, and where it's just like who like why do like what? Like who gives a shit? Like if somebody likes you and you have an interest towards them, then why is like race like a fact? You know what I'm saying?
Hold on to it, because we'll have to discuss it some other time, right? We'll have to jump into that another time, and maybe we'll make it a topic for next week. And dig to the bottom of this.
It's a very good topic.
Oh shit!
I think it's a spicy topic. But Lyra, you had your hand up.
Oh, I did. I was just going to talk about like my answer to the preferences question, and I think it's okay to have a preference as long as that preference is a byproduct of internalized self-hatred or racism. So you can have a preference all that you want, just as long as as a Black person, you can say, "Oh, I prefer white people," as long as the reason you prefer white people isn't because you hate Black people.
Okay.
That's just
So
wait, I got a hot take real quick.
hold on to your hot takes. I want next week when we can actually dig into this. No, don't do it now.
I'll save it, Prime, for you. I'll save it.
You will. Thank you. All right, so you guys got to come back.
I hear it's better if you save it too.
I heard it. It's better when you wait, right? Right, Fanatic?
There you go.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
It's because you're waiting to be like there's actually three people in the bedroom. It's you, your partner, and God. So you're waiting till God is ready to be there to guide you through the journey.
In Jesus' name, I bust.
There's a fourth person.
Oh yeah, sorry. And Jesus Christ.
Yes. No. The husband crying in the corner, guys. Come on.
Yeah, it's me, God.
Jesus.
Over and her husband and saw him crying in the corner. Okay.
Oh yeah.
It's just me then. Whatever.
No.